Here we go.
Wait.
Wow.
Here we go.
Not yet.
Trifecta right there, huh? Are we on?
Not yet. Oh, we're still.
Not yet? Okay.
Okay, now we're live. And incognito's off.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the to order the June 8th, 2022 regular meeting of the Historic Resource Preservation Board regular meeting. Could I ask for the secretary to take a roll call, please?
Bernard Guthrie,
I'm here.
Ricardo Martin,
Here.
Steve Pickett.
Here.
Bob Dorenzo.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Could we rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I'd like to call anybody who would like to, any additions, deletions, or reordering?
No, I believe as the agenda is presented.
We do have one modification. There was an item that was continued from the previous meeting. That particular item is the
Can't hear you.
hold on a second. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Some volumes off. There's a.
Yeah, I think you guys need to turn the volume up on the computer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
Can you sing directly into the microphone, please?
All right, can you guys hear me? Did you turn up the volume?
A little bit better, yes.
Okay. So item B was continued from the previous meeting. As that item, we did not have a quorum at that meeting. Unfortunately, the applicant cannot be in attendance this evening and asked for a continuance to the July meeting.
Do we need a motion for that?
We'll need a motion on both our continuances, but I just wanted to make you aware that both items A and B will need to be continued to July.
A and B.
Oh, A and B. I make a motion to extend A and B to
continue
be continued. Second.
to July 13th.
To the July 13th meeting of the HRPB.
Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Pickett. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Any opposed? All right, so on to, we go directly on to B then?
C.
No, I'm sorry.
B.
The public hearing, board disclosures, unfinished business, new business. Okay. We're on to C project number 22-001-00212.
Did you do any board disclosures?
Yeah, we need the board disclosure. Then we talk to it.
Okay. I'll go ahead and ask if there's any disclosures from the board. Mr. Pickett,
No.
Mr. Martin,
With respect to the first one coming up?
would be well to the, I guess any of the,
I think Wes is up here to speak, and like I mentioned before, I provide my disclosure that this is licensed with our company. But it doesn't cloud the judgment on anything that's presented.
Thank you.
Now, do I file that form again?
Yes.
and Mr. Dorenzo,
I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
and I as well do not have anything to disclose. So, so we can go on to project 212. Consideration certificate of appropriateness for the roof replacement of and an unreasonable economic hardship application for an income property, which we're going to get to in a minute, located at 814 North Ocean Breeze. The property control number on record. The subject property is a non-contributing resource to the Northeast Lucerne Historic District and is located within a single-family residence zoning district.
Mr. Chairman, before we get started, 2 notes. One, the subject property is not an income property. That is a typo in the agenda. It's a home, it's a owner occupied unit residence. And we also need to swear in staff and applicants right now.
Okay,
We need to swear in staff and applicants.
okay, so could I go ahead and ask staff and applicants at this time to be sworn in? Anybody wishing to testify this evening? Please raise your
Or
hand.
you'll need to raise your right hand and swear.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, just off can you repeat, this is not an income property, is that correct?
Yeah, this is not an income property. It's correct in the staff report, but it was not, that typo was not adjusted in the agenda item, which was part of the staff report.
I just-
If we have a presentation, Yen, if you can share my presentation.
She lives there,
Sure.
it's not an independent property.
Okay, that's what
Hillary, I'm going to stop your video until staff finishes presentation and then we'll bring you back, okay? Okay, and then Yen, you're going to need to share that presentation. Going to have to share the screen so we can see
Okay,
it.
sure, I got it.
apparently you can hear Aaron very well right where you are.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to be coming through any speakers around here. I can't hear anything. I hear you.
You
I
have
hear
a
her
mic-
through you.
Is she on the phone with you?
She's on the Zoom, and so the only speaker is,
The only speaker we have is the computer.
yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to have the mic next to it.
Does the TV volume pick it up at all? Can we try turning up the volume on the TV a little bit? Does that work?
I don't think the TV volume is, yeah, it's muted. I
She
see.
is muted so that we can get.
Okay, that-
I think last time it didn't work because we got feedback though. That was a
Yeah.
problem. Okay. So I'll just try to speak as loud as possible. So if you could go ahead and change the slide.
Sure.
As stated, this is a certificate of appropriateness for an unreasonable economic hardship application at 814 North Ocean Breeze. It's a contributing resource in the Northeast Lucerne district and is located in a single family zoning district. It is a homesteaded property. Next slide, please. You can see here's the map. Next slide. This was completed in 1947. It's a masonry vernacular style. The original shingle type was a roof asbestos shingle. That's changed to a concrete tile in 1967, as well as other on-site modifications subsequent to 1967 roof change. Hillary Broder, the property owner, is requesting to replace the existing white concrete barrel type roof with an Owens coring dimensional shingle roof. It's also, this request is accompanied with an economic hardship application. Next slide.
Can I stop you there? Are you calling, this is a barrel tile roof we're looking at?
Yes.
It doesn't look like it to me.
It's a flat tile.
It looks to be a flat tile.
It's a flat tile cement.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I caught also when I was looking at it. It is not, definitely is not a.
So next slide. I think you have the older presentation. So if you can just go ahead and close out and I'll just share my screen.
Sure.
What we can do here is just go ahead and close that out and then I'll pull up. Sorry, the logistics of working from home today have been a little more difficult than usual. So I wanted to share with you some, there we go.
That's the picture we're looking at, doesn't it?
Yeah, sorry, it was a flat tile. She was requesting to a barrel tile originally, so it's a flat tile. So you can see here the flat tile roof. There is some damage to some of the front roof structure. It was originally installed as an asbestos shingle, then to the flat tile roof. And the request is accompanied with an economic hardship application. Staff recommends that the board review the criteria and determine if the replacing the should be flat top with with an asphalt roof would impose an unreasonable hardship. And if the board determines that there's an unreasonable hardship, staff has drafted conditions of approval for the light gray dimensional asphalt shingle. And that concludes our presentation. Here's the potential motion. I'm going to stop the share and bring on, I'm going to ask Hillary to unmute and start her video so she can answer any questions you may have. So I think when this came before you previously, we had uncovered the change, the tile, the change to the tile in 1967. And I don't think we have been able, I don't think we found that permit before when it came before you to replace it to asphalt shingle previously. So she has come back and we located that particular permit from 1967, showing that change. So Hillary's here to answer any questions you may have.
Aaron, could you repeat what it was you found a permit in 1967?
Yeah, we found the 1967 permit for the tile roof. We had not, that was in a property file that was offsite, was being scanned. So it was not, we didn't have access to it when it came before you. Because these homes typically had flat tile roof, we noted when that scan came back, that permit was discovered, and that the original roof type was an asphalt shingle roof. I mean, not asphalt, asbestos shingle, sorry.
How was it determined that the original roof was asbestos shingle?
It was in the permit material, in the permit card.
So basically in 67, they did a fairly decent upgrade to a concrete.
They did, and the tile, both the asbestos shingle and the flat tile roof are both were typical of this architectural style in the time period.
The asbestos shingle was typical.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry, I wanted to clarify that. Go ahead, Ms. Broder.
I live in this neighborhood, and my next door neighbor had a tile roof, and that was changed to an asbestos roof. And most of the homes on the block are asbestos. And
Hillary,
I mean, I'm sorry,
yeah, we don't do
asphalt. Yeah, not barrel and not tile. So the terminology is something that I'm not altogether familiar with. But I do have a problem with the when I first moved here. It was sudden because of the passing of my brother. So I inherited the house, and I had the tile cleaned. Within 6 months, it was very dirty looking as it is now. And I find that unattractive, and I don't like it. And I don't want to pour chemicals down on the roof because it goes into the ground. And I would be happy.
I would say keep your testimony because you're here for an economic hardship, not on the aesthetics of the roof. So you
Okay.
really want to speak to your economic hardship, okay?
Okay, my economic hardship has been extraordinary this year. I had been a professor at NYU, and then I retired, and there have been a lot of upkeep on the house. I have a squatter in my apartment where I'm really strung out for money. It's cost me over $40,000 to maintain her in the apartment, in addition to paying electric. I also had a situation where my mail was not being forwarded here, and my 457B, which was an NYU annuity, was cashed in, and I received a check, and they took out the money for the feds as part of that, which was about half of the amount. That was my nest egg. That was then turned into half. And then this year, I had to pay extraordinary taxes on that because that check went to me. And then I had to pay taxes on what the feds had already gotten. I still don't quite understand it, but you know, I had an accountant go through it, and you know, virtually I made. I used to work at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I get I think $9,000 from that account and Medicare, and which I have to pay, you know, for health services, as most of us do. And it's been a terrible burden on me. And given the economic situation now, the price of the tile has gone up, and it's an unreasonable burden. Plus, since I've waited, the roof has considerable damage to the structure. And as I tried to indicate on the photograph, it kind of caves in. And I've been told that, you know, we should get that done as quickly as possible so the roof doesn't fall in. So that's a problem. I have the squatter still there, and we just had a virtual meeting with her. Oh no, she wasn't there. She hasn't showed up at all. And we have an extension so she could get a GAL, guardian ad litem, for an adult who has ripped me off. And I'm paying an attorney. So things have, you know, there's no income coming in virtually, and except for the Medicare and whatever I get from UNC. So that's my situation, and I would greatly like to, as I did, as Erin mentioned, you know, from the beginning I've been in there, I've really wanted to get this roof replaced, and now I have a better understanding about the barrel that I initially wanted, how that doesn't match the architecture. And since I'm a contributing household, I understand that I need to keep with the ambiance in the neighborhood, and I appreciate what you all do. But I also appreciate my own situation and having some control. And now hearing that they had a different kind of roof initially on the house, I guess makes me even more, maybe I shouldn't say that, but more enthusiastic about getting rid of the white, dirty looking tile.
Okay, could I,
And I've spoken with,
You're kind of at your 10 minutes, so the board will kind of ask you any questions, okay?
okay, I just want to say that also we're not going to be able to replace the current tile on the roof that currently exists. They don't make it anymore. And what they make is not particularly great, and it's very difficult to get due to the backload of materials. That's all I have to say for the moment.
okay, at this time I'd like to ask if the the board members have any questions of staff or the applicant. Mr. Pickett?
No.
Mr. Martin?
The only question I have on the shingle roof, is there any conditions placed by staff? Is it any specific color or?
Yeah, we ask for a light gray color
Like, right,
because the concrete tile was white, and we wanted to kind of keep with the same look, and they don't make white asphalt shingles. So the light gray is the closest you can get.
all right.
Mr. Dorenzo.
I'm fine, sir. I read through.
I have a couple questions on the application for an economic hardship. We've had several, come in over the years, and it's usually people, there's no way they can afford replacing the roof with like materials. My only question on this one, my leaning is to deny it because the shingles that were originally installed with the building were replaced. They were upgraded with the concrete tile. Concrete tile is considered quite a bit of an upgrade. It's sturdier for hurricanes and things like that. And we normally don't like to see people downgrade their roofs. But the only thing that came into play here is the fact that it's at one point there were shingles on there. And I don't know what the comparison of asphalt shingles are to asbestos shingles. As far as I can recall, the asbestos shingles are hard slate type tiles that were put in individually on roofs, so they had quite a different look. Is that what I'm thinking about, or is asbestos shingles look almost exactly like asphalt shingles?
They don't look quite like asphalt shingles, but the closest replication of modern material is the dimensional asphalt shingle, which is what we require. So a 3-tab is not allowed. So it would have to be a dimensional asphalt shingle. And I can pull up some images for you if you'd like of what asbestos shingle would look like.
Okay, now this house does not have, Ms. Broder, does this house have a mortgage on it?
Can't hear.
Are you muted? Are you muted, Ms. Broder?
Didn't think I was, but I just unmuted.
Does this house have a mortgage on it?
No, it does not. That was something else that I put down when I moved into the house.
Some of the other items that people normally will submit showing a financial hardship would be, bank account statements, things like that, showing that they do not have the means by any stretch to afford.
I can tell you that my wealth has deteriorated by about 2/3. So with the current stock market and having put down whatever I did to maintain this house, replacing many things, and I almost didn't get on this call because there's an electrical problem and the Wi-Fi and but the box keeps going out on me. So there've been considerable things that I don't know if that's hardship or it's the hardship of maintenance on this house that unfortunately my brother became ill.
Okay. Anything further from the board? Staff?
I have a question, yes, as far as generally for speaker. Is there a way to allow this replacement, but only in this specific case, as far as like she could put the shingles on, but when the roof is ever replaced again, it does cover that, or is that just we're setting a precedent where it would
You have to come back for roof replacement. You can't get someone financial hardship for 30 years.
no, not the financial hardship,
As
but
far as the roof, they would have to revert back to a tile.
yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any way we can do that. Okay, there's another thing also, Ms. Broder did state at one point that she thought that her property is a contributing structure. I believe in the backup it says it's non-contributing, so what we're looking at is just the way that it affects the neighborhood, and I think that could possibly be taken into consideration. She did not submit any evidence of the houses around her, which has helped in the past. That they all had shingles on both sides of her, and they were the same masonry vernacular construction houses. That would be something that they could be brought into consideration. But The difference, what is the difference in the cost of the roof?
There is a notation from Molesby, and I think if the difference was, I mean, it's much more than what is considerably, Aaron, what Patty told me was considered
More
significant.
than 30% that's in the code.
Is what is it?
It's more than 30% that's in the code, and I can't remember what her quote was, but usually they're running around $40,000 right now, 40 to 50.
I think that she was quoted 28 for the concrete tile. Well, I don't know that I see the huge economic hardships that we've faced in the past. I don't, but I would like to, defer to any other board member. I don't know what a precedent this sets. I mean, anybody has the ability to come in and apply for an economic hardship. So, and then that is what we're considering. And I'm really considering if she did not request the economic hardship and just wanted to replace the roof within time, she would not be here. So she is asking for relief for this board. And so if the board considers that she does have an economic hardship, then somebody should make a motion to grant. If they don't feel that it's an economic hardship, then it should be a motion to deny.
Now, is this, let me ask, is this a standard application? Everybody the same? Do they provide like the same format, balance sheet? Their investment holding? Or because I see the W-2 here. And, it's not like a fully employed person, it's plus the Medicare. I would say that not like a huge amount of earnings, especially with the hardship she's having, and she's retired. But by the same token, we don't have all information. Do we always see the same information for everybody who applies for hardship?
No, different applicants will submit different information. Ms. Broder submitted what she felt comfortable submitting, and provided a statement in the backup to explain her situation. And she can speak more to it, but she expressed to us that she felt like some of the statements and things would make her look like she was not having as much of a hardship because of the releases of some of her retirement accounts. That's how she put it to us. So she provided the information she felt comfortable, and then a statement of what was happening with her economic circumstances.
So there is no standardized.
No, but we have had people come in, and again, in deference to Ms. Broder, I mean, we have had people come in here and they're basically burying, look, I've got nothing. I've got nothing. And they show their bank account. They show that we have no investments. We have no. Ms. Broder talks about she took a hit in the stock market. I don't know that that's that necessarily qualifies for an economic hardship when doing something.
I'd like to add that my nest egg, my annuity, was that one would take over 5 to 10 years to take your minimal required distribution. This was taken from me full-fledged, and then I had to pay over, I think it was, I can't remember the exact figure, it may be in the letter, but I had to pay well over $100,000 to the federal government. Then I had to pay, again, taxes on this. I have leukemia, I have a chronic condition, I'm immunocompromised, I cannot get into my apartment, and I'm having to make trips to get PET scans in New York where my doctors are. Now, I mean, I think that For me, I have emotional and financial hardship, and I'd appreciate your attention or appreciation to that because I live by myself.
Okay, we're taking that into consideration as voters.
Thank you.
We were just, again, all I'm stating is that in other financial hardship cases, people were more forthcoming with their financial area. You had to pay $100,000 in taxes on a distribution, that's, you got some holdings there. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to determine if this is a financial hardship. But anyway, so that's my comment. So I'll leave it up to the board. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I think we have enough information.
I guess, yeah. It would,
If
ask
she's
the
like,
applicant if she's willing to provide any more information, like paperwork information.
I can't hear.
Bank statements. stuff,
I
whatever.
was wondering if you would be willing to actually provide verifiable financial information. I understand what you told us, and some of it does sound pretty dire, but in order to make a decision like this, you do kind of need to have some sort of backup as opposed to just telling us what there is. I mean, it's a, as you understand, it's a huge financial and it's a huge impact decision to make with just having you tell us what your situation is.
In other words, if you'd had supplied something like tax returns or things like that, that really show kind of like a net worth and that you really cannot afford this, we would have more information to base a decision on. The amount of evidence that you presented it falls a little short and compared to a lot of other people that have had financial hardship and requested relief because of that. I mean, we do hear your issues that you had and your apartment up north and your squatter and all that. We understand all that, but it just does not, that does not prove to us that there is that much of a financial hardship. I mean,
I cannot even get a tile roof on the house in a timely fashion before hurricane season. So it's like what I have the hardship, and I have both emotional and medical hardship. And I think you have to look at the gestalt, the big picture here, because things are rather dire. And
excuse me, Ms. Broder?
yes,
I don't believe, if you're turned down, you're not prohibited from reapplying again. If you wanted to bring forth more information that would allow us to make a better informed decision. But I don't, like I said, for me, I didn't see enough of it here. I hear you, but I don't see it. It's not, that's what you have to give if you're claiming
Would
economic.
there be interest from the board if we worked with Hillary between now and July and we're able to ask her to produce some specific financial documents like what she paid in taxes with relation to her nest egg? And some other details, would that be helpful to continue the item rather than, because to reapply is a long road for both Hillary and staff as well. So
I hear a motion to continue.
Oh, I make a motion to continue to next meeting,
July 3rd.
July 13th.
And this, okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Come back with some more information and we can really consider it, okay?
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to. Bear with me, I'm not as good as our former chairman on this. Okay, we're on D. This would be 21-00100148 consideration of this. So the certificate of appropriateness for a second floor addition, new wraparound porch, and new detached garage, including an accessory dwelling unit above it. for a building located 201 North Ocean Breeze. With the PCN number recorded, the subject property is a contributing resource within the South Palm Park Historic District. The property is located in the multifamily residential MF20 zoning district. Take it away, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just share my presentation. Go ahead, next slide, please. So I'm not going to reread the other stuff. I think you stated it. I'm trying to save my voice a little. If we could just move forward. You can see the property owner at the location at 2nd Ave South in North Ocean Breeze. It's an existing single family home. Next slide is in the MF20 zoning district, which would allow multifamily residential. The original structure was built in 1940. It is in a mixture of a Tudor and colonial revival style. Modifications have been minimal over time, and there's been some site improvements subsequent to the 1940 build. Next slide. You can see this site survey here with the single family structure. Next slide. This is the proposed site plan. They're proposing to extend the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, add a wraparound porch, and add an accessory dwelling unit with garage to the rear. Next slide. You can see the rendering. The proposed master bedroom extension is in the front on the eastern facade. The wraparound porch, you can see it is along the north facade. And then the ADU is above the rear garage. Next slide. Again, and I just want to state for the record that the fencing that's shown here is not code compliant. So it was a fencing or screening, we're not sure what that is, but that would require a separate fence permit and then need to be reviewed separately. Next slide. So there is a historic waiver requested. Now, if you recall, I think it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, we saw a structure with a small cottage with a larger garage and master bedroom suite, separate and detached. And we've seen several, and we've had some discussions about the fact that if the main structure is more preserved, instead of, let's say, this is in a multifamily district, instead of creating a duplex, would it be more desirable to have a separate garage and allow for a historic waiver? So that's something that you'll need to rethink about, that past discussion that you've had, because they are requesting a waiver from the ADU with garage. So normally accessory structures can exceed 40%. When you add an ADU, that goes to 60%, and they are requesting 73%. The max would typically be 1,179. They're requesting 1,358 square feet. And then all other items are code compliant. Next slide. You can see the street elevations on the east and on the north. Next slide. Again, the top one is the south elevation. The bottom one says south elevation, but that's actually the north elevation. Next slide. Again, the east elevations of both structures. Next slide. Then you can see the proposed floor plan. This is the upper level slice of the accessory dwelling unit. They are proposing a 2-bedroom unit. One of the things I wanted you all to discuss was the timing condition. The applicant has expressed if you wanted a timing condition, because the applicant has expressed that they would like to build the ADU, move into the ADU, and then do the construction on the principal house. And so that is something I wanted to bring to your attention if you wanted a timing condition related to this project. Next slide. The window and door schedule. Next slide. Just as a reminder, new construction needs to be visually compatible with the historic. New buildings should take their design cues from the surrounding existing structures, and I won't continue to read. Next slide. The new accessory building is designed to reflect the Tudor revival component. The proposed modifications are differentiated from, that are compatible with the original design. But because the proposed accessory structure is larger than what is permitted, you have to determine if a historic waiver for this is appropriate, because it is for the new construction component. And really, the determination would be that the historic waiver for the new construction would allow for a more successful preservation of the principal structure. If you were to grant this waiver. Next slide. There are the conditions of approval. In addition, I wanted to add one other, which was that doors and windows shall be reviewed at building permit for consistency with architectural style and HRPB approval. This is standard practice, but I wanted to add this condition to reinforce that because the garage doors were not detailed in the door schedule. That concludes the presentation. There are the motions up on your screen when you want to go back to them. And if you can go ahead and end the slideshow, I believe Mr. Harris is in the chambers, and I don't know if he's been sworn in or not yet.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Owners represented by Mr. Harris?
Yes. So I'm also the owner.
You're the owner also as well?
Also happy to find.
You're happy to come forward and would like to make a presentation.
I have not been sworn.
So let's just do that. Do you swear to affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
State your name and
Jeffrey Harris. 215 Winona Place, West Palm Beach, Florida. I am the architect for Matt Palmer here for the project you just discussed, 201 Ocean Breeze. It's on the south west corner of the intersection of O and 7th. It's an MF20 zone. It's immediately flanked on the west side by a 4-unit apartment building, and on the south side by another duplex apartment building. Basically, the owner came with the idea of expanding the house and creating an ADU with a detached garage combined. The garage is, everything about this addition is minimal. It is slightly over the allowed 60% value by roughly 179 square feet, which is approximately 15%. Of that 179 square feet, about 104 of it is actually the stairway to get us upstairs. If we were to leave that open, that would be counted in square footage, but it seems foolish in climbing up 400 to have a non-covered stair right in front. So if you look at the plan closely, you'll see it's a very tight plan. It's got 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a little kitchen, and a small living room dining. There's nothing extravagant about either portion of the building. The garage itself is basically 20 by 24 out to out, and the upper level cantilevered out slightly. Part of the reason cantilevered it was not only for the square footage, but so we could get a little additional detailing that would make the house more of a mock Tudor, I would call it that. It's not, the old house wasn't really a true Tudor, it had some Tudor detail. In fact, one of the things that's going to happen to the old house is the owner will be bringing back the simulated timbering above the entry area that used to be there. We have the original drawings from the project, and there used to be timbering up in that gable, more or less right over the entry. So we'll bring that back, and that'll help to restore sort of as much of the Tudor detail as we can in the original house. The addition you'll see has timbering simulate a true Tudor structure, as well as this cantilever with some brackets on it, and it sits on a masonry base. So it ties in pretty closely with a typical Tudor building. Tudor's not really a style here. It's in the, I think it's called the other notable styles in design or something like that. Let's see. Other than that, the other idea was, in order to do this, first of all, that's not a fence. That's actually an existing hedge. It's on the property. I've made it transparent. You can see it, but a set of large package of existing photographs. I'm not sure if those are included in the package or not. I don't see them anywhere. There were also many more.
Do you want us to go through the drawings, in the order that you sent, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. If you want to do that, that would be great.
Yeah, I can pull those up for you.
But anyway, that's really it's not. So it's an existing hedge.
clarify a little bit, chain link fence that the hedge has overcome, it's one of the future bushes over there, you kind of next to the chain link fence and it goes back on the fire. One of the things about that fence and about the new design is the current entry to the house comes directly off the second. The owner wanted to bring that entry in on elevation. So we showed, there's an image in the drawing somewhere that shows the new proposed entry slot as you run down through it. Yeah, if you could just sort of gradually go through these drawings, that'd be great. That's the first drawing up. You can back up one and then we'll start. That's essentially the way the property looks like with the Tudor house located here. Next slide, please. That's the new relationship with the house that we need to do on the site. You can see to the north, which is off of these drawings. To the north of the ADU, that's the stair area. That's what I'm saying. That's about 104 square feet of the 179 square feet. The wraparound porch you can see on the existing house, that's there to give us more exterior space to use, protected from weather. Slide, please.
Sorry.
All right, so this is the new south elevation, east elevation of the house. The existing house, right above the two windows, you can see that used to be a Florida room, previously converted. Well, it used to be a closed porch, then it was converted to a Florida room with a flat roof directly above it. The new master bedroom will extend, or the large master bedroom will extend onto that, even above, with a gable to match the pitch of the existing room. And then to the right of that, and behind the head, you can see the edge of the east edge of the wraparound porch. Next slide, please. There's the north elevation of the house, showing the wraparound porch and the ADU. Again, the hedge is shown transparent, so you can see everything behind it. That gable, just to the left of the little entry canopy, is the one that will be restored to sort of a Tudor detail.
Is that on the second floor or the first, just, you say to the left of the entry?
Yeah, you can see the little gable on the lower floor there. That's where the entry door is, the existing entry door.
Right.
Just to the left of that, and up on the second level. That used to be, it used to have wood trim on it to look like half timbers. That'll be restored. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, well, that's, yeah, there it is without the show. Next one, Eric. Thank you. That's from the alley looking at the ADU at the garage. It's a two-car garage below. The hedge is opened up a little bit to allow access to it. And above, it's just simple fenestration with timber in between it to break up the panel. The stair tower is just to the left of the front. Next slide, please. That is the west elevation of the existing house with the new wraparound porch. Those are going to be new sliding glass doors off the dining room onto the porch.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
With that one there, how far does that porch extend toward the setback? Oh, it's on Second Avenue.
Yeah, it's, well, at some point we can go, it doesn't hit the sun. It's just a little bit to the south of that side setback. Can we go to the next one, please? You can see that, by the way, on that one of those plan drawings. So that's the south elevation of the property. There is a fence there right now that separates the two adjacent properties. Obviously, that's not shown in this. You can see in the ADU and the garage how that works with the bracket holding up the cantilever. Obviously, it doesn't hold it up. It's just a detail to add something to the building. And the brick base and timber and stucco over top. Next, please. This will be just a series of three-dimensional perspectives, bird's eye perspectives, showing the various components. We can go through these fairly quickly. Next, please. that's a better shot of the wraparound porch. It really creates some nice exterior space for you.
Where's the entrance to the stairway?
To the,
Oh, he's the man standing right there.
yeah, right. Right. And there's also an entry in there from.
Okay, Mr. Rogers.
All right, next please. That's the opposite for view. And then the next one shows the wraparound porch. The wraparound porch is an important component of this because it creates a dialogue between the existing house and the new HRPB. It creates within that courtyard space between the building.
That question behind the garage, in front of the garage door, is that concrete or pavers or what between the alley and the garage?
Right now, it's just going to be landscape.
Okay,
Yeah, there is actually a secondary garage door that faces into the courtyard from the garage. So, for example, if the owner decides to entertain, they can raise that garage door off their covered space. Serve food out of there.
I don't know what type of gate or whatever. Yeah.
I don't think it has been officially ironed out over there yet. We've had debates about it, and I don't know if we decided right over here is
Right.
whether or not it's gonna be a gate that can close all the way over there, or whether or not we want to have it. So we sit on, I think, one of the prettier alleyways on the south side of there where it's paved. And so I don't have any objection to having it more of a hospitable way over there, but again,
You got the church right here. too.
the church is on the
They
opposite
got a
side.
lot of activity,
Parking is horrible. We are
Yeah.
surrounded by a bunch of people that are not required to have parking.
Right.
And so I can't find parking spots by my
so
house.
that's what I was asking you, how you know.
So through the alley over there, and one of the reasons why you have the setback over there, is so I can just drive through the alley and then pull into the
Right.
like the ADU and like the footage and stuff that we're taking up over there. If we just kind of use the garage by itself as opposed to an ADU, all we do is go to our existing primary dwelling over there. But because we want to put an apartment above it, when we build it over there, I guess it changes how it is that you guys look at it. If we would do this in phases over there, I feel like the garage would be automatically approved over there, probably would be a big deal. And later, you could probably add an apartment to it, because then it wouldn't be counted as the whole additional construction.
Right.
But again, it's
That was something I was gonna get into, is the request that it not all be built at the same time.
so I have two small kids. One is,
Question, can you state your name and address?
my apologies, my name
Yeah.
is Matthew. My name is Matthew Palmer. I live at 201 Mission View. I have two small children. My youngest is now a year and a half. He's 4 One of the main reasons why we want the apartment is because when our family comes, we want some place for them to be able to stay. Potentially could it be used as a rental property or it be used long term? Yeah, it could. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the attached makes sense to us, because we feel it's a cheaper option to go and build it, tie it directly over into the main house. So that would be more costly. My wife initially argued to have our mother-in-law student everything attached to the main house with the garage and everything over at the main house. So I thought it would probably be more economical if we took it off and built it up by itself.
What is the reason for not doing them concurrently?
So it costs money to go off and stay. I feel like this is going to be a separate project. Not like paying another rental while I'm doing this over here. I feel if we build up that ADU, over there, we can go move and stay over in that small apartment while they have to tear up our master bedroom and bath. Also, we are going to be doing some interior remodeling in the house, putting in the kitchen and that kind of stuff. So once the kitchen's out, it's not really a place that you can, a family can actually live in without buying a bunch of pizza or whatever.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, so they're gonna be.
Oh, good.
We would like to have a comfortable place to stay while we do some damage to it.
Does staff have any issues with that? Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, that's one sticker. When I heard that, that kind of made my eyes widen a little bit.
I couldn't hear what he said.
I'm discussing the proposal to not have everything done concurrently, and having them done separately.
Yeah, we have a recommendation on that. We believe they should come in for a concurrent building permit, be issued a TCO for the accessory dwelling unit and not get a final CO until both projects are complete.
That would allow you to move into the
Right.
apartment. It'd be a temporary, certificate of occupancy. And then that'll allow you to move in there, all the other ones being completed, but you wouldn't get a full CO until everything is completed.
It would be one building permit for both.
One building permit, but they would be able to move into the apartment
Right.
if they finish that first.
In our,
It's not there.
It's not there yet.
just created.
Okay.
Well, I was not, when I reviewed the staff report for the water and the director, I was not ready one of the buildings out at the same time, and we can't run the risk of the possibility that there will be a non-conformity created. The other thing is that your waiver criteria is the least amount of a waiver that is necessary for the project to happen. There's nothing, especially with the dialogue that the architect described between the open porch and the dwelling unit, that the stair could not be an open stair with a roof on it that would emulate a porch, and that would reduce the need for the waiver by, at whatever square footage you mentioned, it would bring it down closer to the 60%, which is.
Yeah, I would like to respond to that. So that's just seems like a foolish waste of money. We live in a state that has a lot of rain, a lot of storms, and it doesn't make any sense to build a stair up to an apartment, secondary living area for family or whatever. It's not protected from the elements. It just,
It would have a roof on it.
yes, but you know, it's what I, that doesn't mean anything.
Well, then your other option would be to shorten something up on something like that, but.
I mean, I believe
If it was
this is-
important to have that air conditioned space.
Right, I mean, I'm not even worried about air conditioning. This is I believe this is a minimum response to the program. I don't think we're asking for extravagant.
Well, 179 is not a huge amount. I looked at that as well, but
I agree.
you know, that's not a huge amount that's going, it doesn't look like it makes it, it's not obtrusive the way that it's, I don't know.
Not like it's living space.
Yeah,
Whether it's open or closed.
Yeah, I mean, your air conditioning your staircase.
but that's still, it's even if you would open it up to a stairway, it would still be a little over the 60% mark.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When you talk about the square footage and stuff like that, and I know that the ADU over there is in front of the garage itself. If you got rid of that apartment above it, and then you have that garage, and then a couple of years later, you came back.
Can you guys speak into the mic? It's really difficult to hear.
My question is, if we were to go ahead and put the garage without the apartment house, and go ahead and finish that off, and then we.
Battery died.
All right.
Steve, you can tip your microphone towards them.
Hey, can you flip your mic?
There we go.
Hold on. Never mind.
Answer the question. But
Yeah.
So we built the garage itself by itself, and then we did the addition over office, closing the master bedroom, basically a walkout porch or patio on the bedroom over there. Is then if you then try to build an apartment above that garage, that would still put us over our,
we're no like 60% with the maximum
Yeah.
ratio.
even though the garage is for the primary wall.
If we're accessory unit, accessory structures, regardless of what they are limited to 40% of the primary structure. Once you add an ADU, you can go to 67% structure.
But there would be no issue if we have a garage directly attached to the house and then built the apartment above it.
So then you would have a duplex.
It would only be a duplex if there were two separate, right? If you have the apartment above it and you're still connected to the main house, out in the exterior. And so
You have a two kitchens, even though the house is not allowed.
we would not do the sub the same way that we would if it was attached to that.
Well, I mean,
Well, that's hypothetical. I understand.
right now.
And what we're looking at is what is proposed, so. Okay, so, and I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No, that's fine.
Your presentation.
Absolutely.
Okay, is that your presentation?
Yeah, I just want to point out that, I believe that the 226 South Elm Street waiver, asked for significantly more in terms of the waiver for the square foot. That was Fairfax project, and you remember that project.
Yes.
It was approved on.
That one was approved,
9/15.
yeah, that was approved, had special conditions with,
The house up on the.
with the, there was some special, that allows us to go that much more on that, because that's exceptionally more square footage
It was like 169%
of the original front house. And there was a reason that we were allowed to, by our own code, there's a reason we were able to do that. And I can't remember what that exact reason is.
It was because the original principal structure was so tiny. That was like an 800 square foot cottage.
There was something else that is specifically,
No, we're talking about this one.
but yeah. that's
If
right.
we were to make the condition, how did you word that as far as the permitting and the CO? It would be consecutive? Is that
It would
need to
be
added?
one combined permit
One permit
For the entire project.
for the project.
for the entire project. The ADU would be able to get a TCO first, a temporary certificate of occupancy, and the final CO would be issued upon the completion of all work.
Only get 80%.
It would be concurrent, the one building permit, a TCO could be issued for the ADU. But the final CO would not be issued until until all the work was completed.
Yeah, and issues pop up with that is that if we finish the garage and the apartment above it, and they decide not to do any work on the house,
That's why the CO won't be final until all the work is complete. on
but
the
somebody
house.
would be able to come up, and then we would be drastically over the coverage
Mhm.
because of the addition of the,
Like, you know, I have this conversation all the time, and like with you, if you made a decision on all the what ifs that might.
What ifs and what ifs?
So you do not allow anything to happen.
we're getting our way.
Yes.
It seems like. Okay, I'm sorry. Any other questions from the board?
No, but you can make the motion because I can't remember what you just said.
Oh, you're gonna make a motion?
I mean, I will, but I appreciate it.
I had some questions, myself, I had questions about the addition of the extension of the master bedroom out over the existing flat porch. And, because I'm familiar with the property, I drive by it all the time. Beautiful place, I really, really like it too. I'm just wondering if that's gonna change the outside appearance more so, I think, than just about anything on here, because that right now is what appears to be a flat roof floor room. And by extending that out, it really changes the appearance totally of the entire front structure. I can see why you want it. I mean, it's definitely can use space and it doesn't look out of character, but it definitely changes the whole
Right,
look of the structure.
right. I think though that we've tried to modulate that a little bit, in that we lowered the roof line on the extension. So it's not a continuation of the roof line. It drops down, and I believe that the way we've got it detailed, it's going to basically make it look like a two-story floor. I mean, there are enough windows in it that the same kind of detail will be carried over.
Are you taking any of the timbering detail around that side?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a very large house. I've been in the house through the years. It is not a very large house to raise a family, and I remember that house.
But they did do with the border, I mean, you see how they
Yeah.
separated it, and it's a step back on there, so that was done right. So the main focus of this board at this moment is going to be the variance for the square footage.
Waiver.
Excuse me, the waiver
Whatever.
of the square footage requirement. Other than that, I mean, I don't have any problem with the
No.
designs of either structure. I wish you could make it so that it was, if you would cut back on the square footage of the two-car garage with the apartment over it by 4 feet, well, 3 feet or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
You come into compliance, so.
again, the garage it's a two-car garage, it's 22 feet deep.
Okay.
Standards, two-car garage.
Right, and I think it's 24 feet wide. Once you deduct the 8 inch concrete block for the lower level, lower of the wall, then you get down to a much smaller garage. So, I mean, obviously we could take inches out of it, but I'm not really sure that gains, I don't think that gains anything in terms of the house being, certainly more appropriate. I know that there's an issue with the square footage, which is a technical issue or a numerical issue. But in terms of the way everything looks, I don't think reducing it by whatever it needs to be to get into compliance is a significant, it makes it significantly better.
I'm leaning toward granting the waiver for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I don't think that opening up the staircase, I agree that, and this is kind of what, kind of climate we have, it might not be great. I don't think that opening up the staircase really is gonna change the massing look of that building that much. So, where it's a number on a page that says it's over, and how people are gonna perceive on the street, I don't know if there's that much of a difference. And then the other, I think, bigger picture things I like about this is that they're adding, they're improving the parking situation. With 2 parking spaces off the alley. And they're creating another living space, which I think is something that we need here. I'm a proponent of, what we call the missing middle housing, ADUs, and providing that kind of hidden density in the city that allows for people to find some affordable places to live, and that kind of thing without a huge amount of impact. So I think in this particular situation, for those reasons, I would support offering a waiver, but I do believe that we need to have the concurrent permit and granting the TCO as far as how the whole thing's implemented. Give it a shot.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
This may be a stupid question, but the 60% of structure. What number is that? Of the main house, right?
That's right.
But which square feet is that? Or with the couple?
That's the square footage with the addition, which is why it's also, it's of the square footage of the addition, which is why the addition which is why the project needs to come in as one permit, because otherwise the waiver is larger.
Permit, because the addition is what is making the 60% for the.
Yeah, that's right. Historically, we've been able to take future square footage that's going to be built basically right away, and the total square footage from and add that to the you get the total enclosed square footage.
That's why it really should be one permit.
So it includes
The
The
new side of the
expanded-
primary structure drives 60% of the new ADU and garage.
Because if that wraparound porch, does that count into it? No, because that's open space. Okay, so the only thing that does count for that is,
Enclosed space of the principal structure.
okay, how does the second story? Does the second story add to that? Does
We
it-
just
no,
said that the new
Yes.
house with the addition. primary
With the, okay, the front of the upstairs, right, okay. I'm looking at square, footprint as opposed to total square footage.
So as far as the motion, does approving the condition of a certificate of appropriateness, automatically give the waiver, or is there a separate motion?
Yeah, that's all I was looking for. I read it.
See,
Both, you can both, and
okay, that's,
you can't approve the project as the new out includes.
Okay, so it is, okay.
you wanna know?
One other issue that should be noted for the record, the city right now has not made a decision, and technically it's illegal to have vacation rentals. So one condition that you may consider is the property does not be used as vacation rental until such time the city renders a decision as to whether it allow or not.
I would entertain that.
We have a 60-day minimum, right?
Yes, yes.
That's a great thought point.
Yeah. Because the vacation rental costs.
So I would
not related to my building right now in this permit, but if everybody in the neighborhood is doing vacation rentals.
Illegally, yeah.
Yeah.
If they are,
We had
they
a
are.
big meeting about that last month.
Wait,
City.
Aaron,
You can report them if you want.
I'm not,
But you gotta give your name and address.
I'm not sure the motion in the packet is what,
Are we
Yeah,
right
this
or right, right?
yeah, this isn't.
You wanna do it?
You're muted, Aaron.
I'm pulling up the motion for you right now. Just give me a second. Hold on, 2 seconds.
I got the potential motion here. Well, what was our problem with that? Then we talked about the shade tree.
So the motion is to approve the COA at 201 Ocean Breeze based on the competent and substantial evidence. And the COA is inclusive of the addition to the principal structure, the wraparound porch, the accessory dwelling unit, as well as the historic waiver to allow the larger accessory dwelling unit structure. That motion, if I'm inferring it correctly, would also include the additional staff condition related to the door and window review at permit, and would include the timing condition requiring that both that the complete project come in under one building permit, and a TCO could be issued for the accessory dwelling unit. Can you repeat that, Elizabeth?
I will do my best. So the motion is on your screen and it includes the conditions of approval that were pre-printed in your staff report.
Waiver.
Additional yes, that includes the waiver and all the things. It includes additional conditions requiring the concurrent building permit for the addition and the ADU, with the temporary CO at the ADU and final CO not being until all the work is completed. And for door and window review at permit, correct, Aaron?
Yes.
And then if they want to add a prohibition against using it as a vacation rental until
That's already prohibited in the code.
I mean, well, we can still make it part of the condition too, right?
Sure.
Because once it becomes, if it becomes legal, then it's legal anyway.
Mhm.
You know, I'd say tack it on there just for the heck of it. That's, if the motion, whoever makes the motion.
I should make the motion. I'm just wondering if am I supposed to,
Remember.
You can say as stated.
all right, I move to approve HRPB project number 21-00100148 with staff recommended conditions of approval as noted. For a certificate of appropriateness at 201 Ocean Breeze based on the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Newport Beach nation's historic preservation requirements.
Are you adding both? What are the conditions you're adding on that?
Was that noted?
Does that include the prohibition?
For the ADU?
Vacation, no.
Yeah.
Vacation out.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much and good luck for that.
This is ladies and gentlemen of the board and the staff, thank you very much. Appreciate your vision through the chambers again.
I was gonna say, there's certain aspects of the presentation that kind of show that you were once a member here, so. You know what the staff and the board are looking for, so it's good, thank you. Onward and upward.
That route and that one, I'm gonna stick one as well.
Oh, yeah. Sounds a lot.
Okay, we're on to E, ordinance 2022-11.
That's the one you have a problem with.
Yes. Consideration of the amendment to chapter 23, land development regulations, article 2, administration, division 3, permits, section 23.2-31, related to site design qualitative standards. Mr. Waters.
Okay, William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. You're gonna have three ordinances, presented tonight that were, evolution of policy direction coming from the city commission that were discussed at a workshop about a month and a half ago. The first one being, the qualitative standards of both site and building, which is before you. I'm gonna run through it really quickly. If you go to the next slide, there's a lot of slides in this thing that mean nothing, but go on, please. So there's been discussion, at least the past year and a half, not before, that the standards we hold in general throughout the city are not strong enough to encourage a strong architectural style and integrity. So there are provisions in this ordinance that improve and strengthen the criteria by which architecture is defined. Its truth is in architecture, its integrity. There are discussions about harmony and height, setback, transition from place to place. A lot of this may seem competitive for you all, because it's already in your design guidelines, but it doesn't apply in areas outside of the historic district necessarily. And our major thoroughfare guidelines are not as specific as some of this information. So we have made some qualitative standards related to how the buildings interrelate, how the sites are laid out. I can answer some questions about that. It's all underlined in the ordinance as proposed. There are some incremental pieces of how architecture is broken out. Since we are having some larger buildings being proposed in the city, this would actually lead to them looking or being at least broken apart by real lines or relief, so they read as smaller components versus one very large building. Go ahead again, please. Second part is, at the request of at least one of my two commissioners, is to have our own performance criteria to ensure that new buildings reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve carbon footprint, have a sustainable approach that is representative of the quality that we hold dear in Newport Beach. So this is somewhat based on the three international standards of LEED, green globes, and well building. But this will be the Lake Worth basic standards for, and have recommendations from the County Zoning Board, which I think that our staff is recommending you follow the same recommendation. This would only apply to new buildings that are 7,500 square feet or bigger, which have to come before a board anyway as a conditional use. Two things that also came out of the Planning Board that may be interest to you, I'm not sure, is that we have prepared two additional definitions that will be included in this ordinance to help have a better understanding of where we're trying to go with this. And go to the next slide. I think it gets down to, yes, the incorporation of design features that for awareness for the preservation and enhancement of community sustainability. All the items there are reflected in some way either in our comprehensive plan or the strategic plan, two of which seem to have a not a nebulous definition, but one that gives pause to people. So we're going to provide a definition. Under social justice, in theory, it's a political and philosophical theory that focuses on the concept of fairness in relations between individuals and society and equal access to wealth, opportunity, and social privileges. So projects, as an example, one of the city's projects that I think achieved social justice was the water main replacement that got fire hydrants into areas of the city that did not have equal access to fire hydrants before. That's just a really simple one. Another one is equal access to parks and recreation. There should be a distribution of those. Many of the projects that we see coming can provide a social justice component, which will be described and required of by the developer. In addition, as part of the presentation to the commission, I thought it would be everybody if we had a definition of sustainability. Since that is actually the name of our department, and we've gone with a principle going back now 11.5 years since I've been here, is that we're looking at the overall sustainability of the city. It's not just environmental, it's not just social, it's not just economic. So the definition for sustainability would be the three principles of economy, society, which is both social and human, and environment that focus on the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So those two definitions will be proposed to be added to the LDR versus using the interpretive references that are code, which is sent to Webster
for an Oxford definition of those two words.
We keep that again, so we would, as opposed to the definition of the word, we would use what?
We would have these definitions included in our LDR. How our code is written out, there's a word that's not defined. It represents that we go to a commonly accepted form of definition, either the Webster Dictionary or Oxford Dictionary, or for a specific design field, like sustainability that falls in a couple of different criteria for a definition. I kind of synthesize them all together to come up with one for the application.
Yeah, in other words, the glass is not necessarily half empty, it can be looked at half full.
Exactly. Or Lake Worth Beach, 3/4 full.
Yeah. Yes.
So we're not reinventing the wheel, you're just recategorizing it and
We're
relating.
recategorizing and providing a mechanism so that people can improve the level of architecture and projects in the city without having to necessarily be LEED certified or well building certified or green globe certified.
Right, but they're all aiming for that anyway, I mean, it's a big selling feature,
We will be one of the only cities that
you're
can,
dealing with the large stuff.
we are with this, at least the only city in Florida will have its own standard of performance for buildings. It's not a national standard, which is some of it based on the same standard of quality prerequisites in order to get points in those three programs. But it doesn't require you to do the full program. However, the sustainable bonus incentive program allows you to retain those additional densities and things if you did an international or national certification like the Green Globe or well.
Okay, but a national standard like LEED, does it have a social justice component?
Well, and Green Globes do. LEED is moving in that direction.
Okay. I just, the thing that just stuck out like a sore thumb of this thing, of just absolutely how big it was. It talks about third person, talks about, what's the golden ratio?
So golden ratio, it's 1 to 1.67.
Oh, I knew that, I should have known that.
The golden ratio, if you look at how a Nautilus shell's sliced in half is designed, it replicates the golden section.
Okay,
Golden ratio.
so therefore, if I want to come into the city of Lake Florida and I want to put up a project that's going to be 12,000 square feet. And I've already got a really, really comprehensive set of LDRs, comprehensive plan that I know what we're talking about. We're going to add, we want to make sure that that my new project is going to have the golden ratio as part of it in some place, or, I mean, we're gonna be looking at that, or we're gonna see how we're gonna have to do something about how my project relates to neighborhood vitality or social justice or diversity and inclusion. My building has got to have diversity and inclusion in it. I'm going to go to West Palm Beach. I'm gonna go to someplace that's not gonna throw a bunch more, as it is right now. Lake Worth is not considered to be easy to work with when it comes to having buildings brought through. Yes, we have excellent guidelines.
So then are we making it more difficult like
Yes.
this?
That's what it appears.
Part of the awkwardness of my position is being both the messenger and the creator. I was challenged to improve our architectural standards in the city and have an appreciation for international trends that have social consciousness, environmental awareness, and architectural integrity, as well as economically feasible projects in the city. So this is a piece that, you don't have to vote on, like, recommend the whole thing. You're making a recommendation to the commission. If you don't feel comfortable with this is within the world of what's appropriate for Lake Worth Beach, you can recommend the commission don't adopt that component.
It's just, I mean, when I looked at it, and I looked at all three ordinances, okay, and all three ordinances, the only one I had any problem with at all, and we can go back and forth on that, is this one here, which seems to me to throw, and it comes from the anti-development sentiment that we have evolved to, that we're gonna throw more things out that more roadblocks people have to jump over in order to build in the city. And we are not a city that can expand. We cannot take on, all we can do is infill. And so as it is, we have one section trying to put smaller properties together so we can have larger projects that are more valuable. And then here we're gonna take it, and anything over 7,500 square foot, which is not really that large, is gonna have to jump through even more hoops than what anybody would have to, either of our neighbors. Already Lake Worth is way behind our neighbors to the north and south as far as building goes in the county in general. I see building going on, we finally do have, a bunch of building going on here, small projects mainly. It's great that the build, and by the way, what a textbook presentation you gave us. Thank you very much. It was remarkable. Thank you very much for everything, and your staff putting, and I know Aaron worked really hard on that as well, and it came across so well. At the end of it, I was thinking, how could anybody vote against this? This is so perfect. So, but thank you very much. Okay, so everything again here, yes, I understand the idea of it, the aesthetic quality of a building or of an entire neighborhood. Okay, you're trying to enhance that, but there were no details. There's no details of any of this. Where does the third party come in? In other words, instead of the board, if you needed to bring something in front of the board to find out whether it meets a standard, it meets the community standards or whatever, they have a third party, nondescript, where is this third party coming from?
Well, as an example, a lead associate, which I'm gonna go to, can assess or review the developer's gonna have to write a little perform more of a justification statement explaining how their project will meet these various criteria. They're gonna have to hire a third party person to verify, okay, what industry standards do you use for refuse stream reduction? On the same token, as part of this moving forward, staff is including a financial impact piece that we're gonna have to have either a consultant on hand, or as if this becomes as popular as some would think it might be, invest in Lake Worth, you'll have to have a dedicated staff person to evaluate these projects and also help monitor them. So there's going to it comes with a cost both not only to the developer to put tests together, but also the monitoring and implementation of the city side.
And we have such an easy time keeping staff as it is. So now we're going to incorporate another staff member that is going to monitor these new hurdles that we're going to put in front of anybody that wants to invest in Lake Worth.
Those are just.
I have a real problem with this one. I mean, I didn't, in general, because that's all it was, it's very general. They would like to see the quality of architecture come up in the city. Great. I mean, that's a worthwhile project. And I really, and I appreciate that. I just have a problem. This one stuck out to me to be one that just really throws a big.
And this was discussed in the planning and zoning.
Did they have?
And is this the result coming from planning and zoning?
No, this is the result of a workshop and in policy direction coming from the city commission. No, planning and zoning board reviewed it, had a lot of the same questions you did. They did move it forward and recommend approval to the city commission. Based on what I'm hearing from you, it's likely that if you were to make a motion for the chairman, that you would recommend not moving forward with item 16 on line 231.
Well, to tell you the truth, when I read through the entire thing, I wouldn't want to piecemeal it. If they're asking if you're asking me whether we should take this and it doesn't matter, the city commission doesn't really take the advice of the board.
No.
In many cases that we've found lately anyway. However, I would want to make sure that in our recommendation to not approve this, that they would come back with something. I mean, they did with us. They didn't like the colors of the street finding, the wayfinding signage. So that was something where a board, gave it to them and said, okay, this is what we recommend. They said, no, take it back and tweak it. We want something better, we want something nicer, whatever. I would say that I would like to see a lot more detail in how they're going to come up, how are they going to come up, where are they going to find the money? Why would they want to throw another financial burden to somebody who wants to build in the city of Lake Worth? It's already, I mean, once everybody meets all the criteria,
They're gonna come up with another three.
they're gonna come, yeah. Once they meet all the criteria that we have, then they're gonna come up and say, okay, well, now you have to meet this, so you need to go out and hire a consultant, and your consultant is gonna consult with our staff member that we have to pay to find out whether your consultant and our staff member agree that these meet the social justice portion or the golden colloquial shell of, excuse me, what is golden? Their golden ratio. And I really just had I heard all the arguments. I'm going, good, they're asking all these questions, that I have on this thing, and then they voted for it. And that just didn't make any sense to me.
Does any other municipality in Palm Beach County do this and how?
In Florida,
Right. I'm gonna have to sway toward the chairman here. And I understand where the commission was coming from, encouraging green and encouraging the 10% to 20% of, recycled materials and all of that. That's great. The incentive programs and stuff. I don't see it much more as a requirement, but maybe you could twist it 16 to add that to the incentives.
right, the incentive comes later on in the third,
right?
No, not in this ordinance.
In the third one.
And then in the incentive, okay, that's the carrot, that's the carrot, this is the stick. Well,
Yeah.
no, I know, I want to get.
But I understand what,
Instead of a ordinance, can we have like an internal guideline? Like, for example, when you guys present to us those list of questions that you always ask, and these can be grouped into a specific question where, a large portion of the spirit of this makes sense. It's when you get into the 10% reduction, the 20% reduction, and then you have to get consultants. You have to get, is there a way that we can, first of all, not be so specific, but where the boards and then finally the commission decides whether it's acceptable project, but that you have an internal procedure or guideline rather than an ordinance that groups these into questions. What is the reduction of water usage based on whatever the toilets that they're putting in or whatever?
I think that would fall into the incentives too.
Yeah.
To comply, it would be financially beneficial for them to incorporate some of those things into their.
To get the incentives, but not as a guideline, not as an ordinance.
Okay, you brought up an excellent point. A lot of our conservation efforts and actually that are brought in code sort of originate from California. Remember when there are tons of drought, a lot of drought, they have, they're very energy conscious and things like that. And so what we're telling everybody here that wants to invest in Lake Worth, that not only do we have to meet those standards. You said toilet flushing, okay? They brought it down from 1.6 gallons per flush down to 1.28. Okay, and you can probably get a 1 gallon per flush. However, if you want to come to Lake Worth, you can cut that down to 9/10 of a gallon per flush a toilet, because we want an extra 10% in Lake Worth. And I have a real problem with that. We've got national standards all over the place, and they are moving that way, and I've got no problem with this. I don't see that Lake Worth needs to be a leader in the country or doing things, like going above and beyond. California is pushing the envelope as much as they possibly can, and everybody else is being dragged, kicking and screaming into that. I just see this, I really see this as coming from you heard people last night trying to figure out any way to stop a development.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any way, was there any question? And it turned out, and I think it kind of, and I shouldn't be saying this, but it might have turned out to be a benefit to the Gills, because now instead of having to pay into a tree fund, they can just get somebody to come in. If they get it for under $54,000, they stick money in their pocket to move these 22 trees over in Bryant Park. And I mean, it kind of backfired on.
I hear you, and the decision here that we have to be is to find some sort of workable situation where it's not ordinance that it will turn people away. It's in regards to this first one, the other two, like, I don't have a problem. Well, the spirit of it sounds logical and the direction of, I think, the whole state. And other than, it depends on which political side you're in, but the whole spirit of it seems okay with me. The only thing is putting it in an ordinance, and we're already at a huge disadvantage with developers.
Yeah.
And developers coming to the city and this constant commentary regarding being too specific. We have boards of, you know, they'll probably add architects, engineers. We have boards, we have a sustainability department. We have an elected commission that is there to make those sort of decisions. I think putting it in so much detail is just kind of just to have something so that you can either deny more people or discourage some sort of development, or there be a, I don't know, I like certain modern architecture, many people don't. I like certain structures of certain size to be kept in a certain area, but if I say have it in that area, the people in that area don't want it in their area. They said, okay, it's good. So this just puts too much of the definition that it should be left to the bodies of the board to decide. They have powers to put people in the boards, so they can, you know, they're gonna have some influence, whether we accept it that it's not some sort of influence. So hopefully there'll be people that will use some sort of fair judgment, but sustainability can come with their recommendations and say, yes, we're gonna give them, I don't know, 3 more units because the 25 toilets save 10%.
I want to clarify that. Under our sustainable bonus incentive program, which does lead to additional density and increase in height, we already recognize in the code that if you do a part of rebuilding, you can be happy with requirements, less than you have to pay the city, you can do lead, you can do things roads, you can do well. That's already in our code.
Right.
This was a request to have it apply to every project, but they're asking for the additional density and increase in height.
I think
So I hear your.
to find some sort of middle ground, I don't think it should go in as an ordinance. It should go in as an internal, written and adopted procedure, departmental or division, whatever you want to call it, that answers the questions, and the burden is really the city in its evaluation of the project.
Well,
And
it is part of our code. But I mean, it is part of the incentive programs, is what you were saying. So I mean, it's already there.
But they didn't have the
Already in
10%.
our code, except
Already
for what's underlined.
Yeah,
The underline's already new.
I just disagree with the new. And if you want to incorporate it into what we have already as incentive, that would work.
yeah, internally.
Why would they,
Pretty
see,
limited
in other words,
threshold already is there of what
Well, additional incentives or.
required to go to sustainability bonus. It's already a low threshold, isn't it, to go to sustainability bonus.
I don't know.
So once
Part
you're,
of rebuilding.
so, no, I mean, like, in the city, if you come in with an application, the criteria that throws you up into sustainability bonus is not gonna,
Any building that was equal.
right? So we're kind of covering a pretty high percentage of development already.
Yeah.
Through this, I just,
Should be internal.
I agree with the spirit of it, I think a lot of us do. I also have an issue with trying to, in some ways, reinvent the wheel. And then I think, you know, other board members have said, sort of put that burden of administering completely independent program just for this city, when there are already other programs out there that could be used, and all we would need from the applicant, not simplifying it, but all we would need from the applicant is have that third party certification when to say, like, this is what we did, as opposed to putting all that burden onto staff, which is already overstretched. And we're trying to create our own independent criterion program when there are already several out there.
Right.
You know, I'm just, when I look through this thing, I just cringe because it just was so out of the blue. And it's like, in other words, all new buildings. Now, and whenever it says all new buildings, I'm to take it that all new buildings above 7,500 square feet, or does that mean all new buildings shall strive to incorporate design principles, shall strive to incorporate design principles, practices, performance, and standards to achieve the following through a project pro forma description and analysis prepared by the developer and verified by an independent third party. Okay, so the developer has got to hire somebody to come up with this pro forma for their project, and then it has to be verified. Is
Not welcoming.
Is there like an engineering company or a appraising company or lead, whatever environmental company that specializes in coming to this lead consultants? Okay.
Get a green glove certification, the green glove professional. Well, have something, you have green associate, you have lead associate, and then when you lead, you also have specialization lines in, building design construction. You have interior design, in lead neighborhood, this lead operations and maintenance, that's not really what's called, but it's what it would entail. There are a variety of them. And then there are also a general, quite a large number of consultants who specialize. One of the criteria that are here are based on the prerequisites to even fall into one of those programs. Where lead, well, and green is difficult is that the improvement you have to make to even qualify is where some needs to be come from. Then you got to improve it on top of that. Let's say for 10% reduction in water. That's the prerequisite before you can participate in it. And then you get points based on how much you improve it beyond that young woman. And so, taking this to national standard and what has been a struggle for more than a while is our energy performance standards and buildings that are already so stringent and some other ones, that it was hard for projects to get other points and make it equal to start having some moderations made into our unique location and climate. So it's not as difficult to get beyond the prerequisites to qualify to participate in the green clubs, but it's a challenge. And you know, the operational savings make, you know, you can make up the additional cost and doing it takes, you know, probably more years.
So how would, this is more of a legality type of thing now? As opposed to not having an ordinance, but having an internal guideline that's given or an application that's given to a developer that says, this is our, even though it's not written in an ordinance, this is what we look for,
So.
and these are the incentives.
Yeah, so when you change it from being in your code as a requirement or an incentive program in your code, it becomes well, we'd really like you to do this. And it's a request. And there's absolutely nothing that makes somebody say, oh, yes, I'd love to do that. You know, it's completely and totally optional. If you have it in your code that says, you know, you need to do this, these are minimum requirements, because like, yes, we'd love for you to have lead. We understand that's a really challenging thing, but like, let's get it. Let's get it a little ways in there.
So it's unenforced, in other words.
Right.
But it says, but when you put it in an ordinance, it says you shall. You shall. It is not may, or we strive, you know, or we would like you to, we would like to consider this. I don't know if it's appropriate, and I'll ask the board. I mean, I think Mr. Wes Blackman had would want public participation. He might be able to shed a little light on the public perspective, and he's part of the public. Is it okay?
We're here for public participation, absolutely.
Yeah, public participation.
Mr. Blackman.
Good evening, Wes Blackman. I'm a practicing urban planner, and I also happen to be in this time and place, but I am chair of the Land Development Regulation Advisory Board, which reviews all the zoning code changes in 2020. And I have been for quite some time. So when I look at code revisions, my ears go up. And they had to go up in order to hear William Stats talking on the YouTube video at the P&Z meeting. And I got a little scared there because I saw the backup and it said new buildings. So I have four main areas of concern, and that's applicability. And we can't go to all new buildings, because I think that's the direction of the city commission.
Yeah.
So the distinction between the minor and the major site plan review is very important. If it is considered at all, it should be a major site plan review. I think it might be too easy to say, well, any site plan review. Well, I have clients already that have trouble meeting the minor site plan review requirements because these property owners with 50-foot wide lots have to get site plans and specifications done by a registered professional engineer and architect, a drainage plan by a registered professional engineer, a landscape plan by a registered landscape architect, and architectural plans prepared by a registered architect. So, and more staff is saying, here, fill out this minor site plan application. So that's a big distinction that you need to be aware of. And I have the site plan requirements that I printed out today from the website. You can just pass these around. These are identical for minor and major. The only difference is the fee, the amount of the fee, and the fact that the staff reviews the minor and the major goes to the board. So I've always wanted to bring this up to the board because it's important.
What is the fee difference?
Pardon me?
What is the fee difference? Between a major-
It's $1,500 for a minor and $3,000 for a major project. And the rate of
The threshold is, like I'm talking about, is why the 7,500 square feet. So 7,500 square feet takes it into a major, and this doesn't apply to single family or two family on residential.
Right.
This is only for commercial.
Or exclusive residential, but not single family or two family.
So I don't want to overemphasize what you've already talked about, but the practicality, difficulty finding professionals for smaller projects. I have difficulty finding architects.
We call
job, and I know,
told
we
you
had
last
this conversation.
Yeah.
Additional expense of the independent third party, who is actually going to do that, and it also needs staff person from the city level. And just the general staff shortage, and when that is going to be solved at the city level or the national level. Concerning redundancy, we have a strategic plan that runs from 2020 to 2025 at 16 pages. Pillar 1B says adopt and implement clear, concise, consistent, predictable, and unified rules, regulations, and processes. That's an official city document, strategic plan. We have the comp plan already. We have land development regulations. We have historic district guidelines, which have been adopted, which is 232 pages. We have major thoroughfare guidelines, which are 101 pages. And in that, on page 12, it says where the city projects an open for business message through the clearly defined design and use objectives for each major thoroughfare. Where new development, redevelopment, and infill projects are inspired by the unique heritage and character already present at North Fork Beach. And then on page 13 of that, it lists key principles, many of the same standards as on page 6 of the proposed ordinance. And one is be intuitive, ensure predictable outcomes. These are published city documents that are, that we have in the storeroom.
Right.
And then subjectivity, you touched on that, the squishiness of some of these topics. And when you boil it all down, this is an impediment to affordable housing because you're adding additional requirements and making a project more difficult to deliver in a time when we are very short supply in terms of our housing. So that's my stump speech. And I'm just trying to speak up for people who are trying to redevelop and working on that.
Thank you very much for that insight. Appreciate it.
And I also have a little thing with the public comments. So don't leave after you elected chairman. Thanks.
Yeah, she's texting all of us as we're having our meeting. You want a motion?
Sure. Have we beat this horse?
I think we beat
Get
it
it
up.
up? It's either we are recommending the
Right,
commission
or not.
to adopt it. I don't like it either because so much of it was so.
I move to not recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments included in ordinance 2022-11.
Are we getting rid of, you're not recommending any of them, or we're just
Mhm.
like?
Just why
Well, we
change
can-
it? It works.
Yeah, do I hear a second? We can discuss more, but do I hear a second? Well, you can second for discussion, doesn't mean you have to, just because you second doesn't mean you have to vote for it.
Sure, else.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to send a recommendation to not approve this. Well, I mean, I don't want to just continue on. I would like, if we could, send the recommendation, or if we decide to vote to not recommend it, we would like to give them some guidance. It's okay, where was the need for this? In other words,
Well,
I understand,
the need is in section 16. That's
what is the need?
all new building shall drive through.
No. In other words, what is happening in the city of Lake Worth that is saying that somebody is coming up and saying, William, look, we need to address this. This is a real problem here. Okay, where that was, that's what I want to find out. What is the need? Where are our buildings, the buildings that are being proposed, not meeting social justice standards? Or where are, where we have, where the Bohemian over here is not inclusive enough. And we want them to hire I don't understand where it's coming from. And I just, the detail is just so absolutely vague. It is a huge cost impediment to, and it's a red flag to somebody coming in. One more hurdle.
Do you want to recommend it, not recommend it, or remove section 16? I mean, I understand where this commission was going to have this brought in front of us. It's right there.
No,
16.
okay, no, there's a whole bunch more. I
But
mean,
I'm just saying, that's like a major one.
Section 16, yeah, but I mean, that goes all the way through. So you're talking about the
Right.
entire thing all the way down to recreation.
There you go.
I mean, this is our ordinance as it states, as it is very comprehensive. And if something doesn't meet these, they can come in front of a board that is being appointed by the same elected officials that are coming to us and saying that we should, have something that bypasses the board. And I think that the board is diverse enough in our professional, personal lives and everything else to be able to take a look at anything that comes in front of us. And if there's an issue with it, then we're able to look at it, through the evidence that's given and staff reports and applicable law and things like that. I don't know that, I just don't see a need for this, and kind of throws it up. The following ordinances that we're gonna be considering, there's some arguments for, a need, because especially right now. Okay, but, we're dealing with carrots and sticks, and I looked at them as sort of being more of a carrot, and this one is definitely being a stick. That was just a general overall feeling of the entire ordinance. So, I mean, that's my thought.
One commentary regarding, I know that you can enforce it legally unless it's an ordinance. But by having, just like we have the current presentations with all the questions that it meets on the historical side, it meets this ordinance, and it meets that ordinance, and it meets the look of the surrounding street, and there's a commentary on each of the items. If this is something that in general, the commission, and it's something that maybe certain states, cities, and municipalities are moving towards, is there a way that we can group these and have them in terms of whether they're moving in that direction, this project? And we can have some input as to, at least we're addressing issues that certain environmental issues that are changing, that sometimes people want to put their head in the ground and not
Yeah, but are you?
not address it, and because it's too expensive, or it's
The challenge that you're sort of talking around is that we base our interaction with development applying what is provided to us by the developer and applying the standards that we have in guidelines. Without the information from the developer as to the answer in one of the questions you just proposed, staff can't sort of look at a project and, okay, I think that's what the developer wanted to do. It's kind of like, the intent. So, unless there is something that the developer is responding to either as a requirement or part of the application that then staff could review, we're not quite gonna get there if this is where the city wants to go. We have to require the developer to provide information that we can respond to based on whatever criteria that we have, obviously, either adopted standard operating procedures, there are guidelines, which, Mr. Buckley mentioned, two of them. And there are some guidelines embedded in the LDRs themselves. And so, hold on, answer the question, but
Okay, can I ask a question? You know, just for like, I would like a, for instance, if you could. Okay, this is all buildings shall address both.
Where are you reading from? Where?
Number 15. This is an add-on page. Number 15 says all buildings shall address both the public right of way and improve the overall pedestrian experience through the inclusion of the following components. Okay, so all buildings shall address all of these clearly articulated entrances. Great, who can argue against that? Okay, expanses of fenestration at the ground level. Okay, how do you decide, that this is a following the component of expanses of fenestration at the ground level? Provision of shade through porches, awnings, galleries, arcades, that's great, I love that part. Appropriate forms of the chosen architectural style, fine. Integrated signage, we shall have integrated signage. Okay, pedestrian scale lighting. Buildings, okay, this is the one that I'm trying to figure out. How do you define at least 50% of the street frontage and openings that approximate a golden ratio of 1.618? How do you define at least 50% of the frontage? Is that what, am I reading that
that's
right?
actually one of the easier ones.
Yeah.
If you have a 50-foot lot, 25 feet of it at a minimum is some portion of the building. This came out of criticism on 3 projects where that was felt that too much of the street space was not addressed by a building. It was open space, a driveway, or whatever else. I won't use the example project.
I have a feeling I know what it is.
And so I'm like, okay, if you really want a building to address that much of the street space, then you need to have a rule that says it does that. Because the way we have it now, we have more latitude to work with an architect or designer to address the street space, but it doesn't have to necessarily be with a building.
Okay, well,
The only commentary is that the reason all these things are coming up is because, and this is just, I guess, more of a citizen speaking of this, we got a lot of ugly buildings, and you can tell when we come into this town, it doesn't look good. So
I agree.
there's a frustration, and I think it's turning out to be maybe a double-edged sword. That the only way that we can see some quality in the new building is by forcing it upon to be addressed. That's what this is, what it looks like,
That's a very.
but it's a double-edged sword.
It's a rather nice summary of what I was charged to do with that equality and the quality of architecture needs to improve dramatically.
And for example, something I know of a person and several people, and this is a commentary. The mid is a nice building, but everybody says, look at the one they built in West Palm. It may command higher rents. They may have, I don't know the details of what, but people see that just visually. They said, wow, West Palm is doing the same thing, a mixed use project, apartments, and the top and all this. But look at all the landscaping. Look at all the design. Look at it gives you a full different impression. I have a feeling all this came about because the community is speaking up, and not only environmental, because we have a lot of environmental stuff at the commission, but also the look and you can tell the moment you cross the canal or the moment you come from another area of a difference that is like, we don't
Care.
or we don't care, and by the way, when we don't care, what comes to come here doesn't care, because sometimes we see a beautiful home and the new person comes in, sees all around all the weeds and the poor upkeep, and it just brings in that type of situation, and brings those kind of developers, or brings those kind of landlords that don't maintain the property. So I think this is coming out of that frustration, but I think it's a double-edged sword, and I don't feel comfortable approving it. Because we do need more real estate tax space. We need to fill those empty lots, fill those empty stores, and by doing this, it's just gonna complicate it, and I think we have experienced individuals, professional staff, professional boards, and a commission that's elected that is looking at these things, and they're just not gonna, no, you saw it in the trees, you know, whether it's good or bad. In last night, which I think, you know, was not the appropriate place to discuss it, because the whole world is watching. 21 trees needed to be moved. But I think that comes out of the frustration of, for example, let me give you another example. I live on North Lakeside. And somebody bought a house there, and over a weekend, they cut 4 oak trees. Disaster. Okay? In less than hours. Okay? And I have a feeling, I can't prove it, that they were cited, they were called, it was already too late. Sold their house, moved up, and they did the damage. So it comes out of that frustration. Somebody comes in, builds their property, and they don't address trees or whatever. The sidewalks can be destroyed, and they're not, they forget, everybody forgets to address it. And I think that comes out, but I think this will do the specific on 16. The percentages, I always feel that you should write an ordinance where it allows flexibility of the departments, the governing boards, and the commission to mold it. And each project. It gives us more flexibility actually than not putting percentages.
I think you're gonna get what you ask for. So if you're not expecting, you're only expecting something at this level, that's most of the time level you're gonna get. I agree with that. I like the idea in a lot of these sections where things are tightened up and there's a little bit more put to what's expected as far as, you know, building out regulations, administration, that type of thing. My sticking point along, I think a lot of other people is 16, where I think that should be more of an incentive than which saying it's already in the code, as opposed to saying that it has to be there. As far as having that as more of a suggestion or just having the back of people's minds if they're doing anything, I don't know if that's really going to work, because I know a lot of developers like predictability. They don't want to have to wonder whether there's a lot of gray zones. So wondering whether or not somebody's going to enforce the 10% this time, and not the 10% next time because it's not codified. It's just something we kind of want. I don't know if they're going to really want it. That's going to make them uncomfortable as well. So the short story is I like most of this ordinance except for 16. I think that should be pulled out as being more of an incentive.
Can I add in here something? Okay, we deal with massing. This board deals with massing on a regular basis. Okay, so they actually in buildings generally have added some characteristics. Okay, buildings or structures which are part of the present or future group of conflict shall have unity of character, style, integrity, and design. Their architectural styles shall be clearly expressed and detailed appropriately to vocabulary and style. Vocabulary for the first time, I think, quite a while tonight. and be of high quality in terms of materials, craftsmanship, and articulation. How do you quantify, okay, this is the quality, this is qualify something, how do you quantify that in terms of high quality, in terms of materials, craftsmanship, and articulation? I do work over in Palm Beach and see some really, really high quality, crafts, materials and craftsmanship over there. And you can go over here and it's, you're not dealing with the same, it's not apples to apples. The relationship of building forms through the use of texture color shall be created in harmonious order. And then down further, it goes to the design scale, and they're adding height, setback, and massing, the location of all on-site and
Where do you
and
read?
so this is
Only buildings, one.
on page 4,
With the line number?
148.
148, the height, setback, and massing. Well, that's what we discuss on a regular basis. But are you saying that this applies to citywide as opposed to just historic districts? I mean, I'm a proponent of having some sort of an architectural review, whether it's this board or something else.
That's where this is a very fine line. Architectural review, for the sake of architectural review is only allowed, I think, in Coral Gables and Palm Beach. It is statutorily not allowed in Florida unless it's an historic district.
No kidding. So therefore, that answers my
Our
question.
Palm Beach actually predates the Florida legislature and how they interpret that, so it's just sort of grandfathered in. But we cannot legislate or, that's why form-based code became very popular, that it sort of drove you into a particular architectural direction, which is also something that this doesn't want to be in, because we're eclectic and we have a very wide array of architectural styles, from, plain vernacular to some very interesting contemporary coming. And so we never wanted to put a developer or an architect, you must stay in this box and develop only this kind of style.
Okay.
And so some of this is pushing the envelope in terms of architectural review. Not call that, it's looking at it more from a performance, a little bit of form-based code, but getting at, there's been a lot of discussion on buildings being in harmony or transitioning from higher to lower, from commercial district to residential district. And a lot of that was discussed and brought out in the charrettes that were done as part of the downtown vision. So some of this was already being worked on before that actually started, but it was reinforced by a lot of the input that came from those individuals existing in the charrette.
Yeah, I just get the impression that this is not something that was brought to you first and saying, okay, because you have a great broad knowledge of whatever, and say, this is our objective. How do we achieve that through whatever it is we're doing? This seems like it was boilerplate from a lot of these things. Somebody you put in some of the additions and striking and underlining things. But I mean, this seems like it just comes from something way out there to, this was not, somebody handed this to you and say, okay, put this into our code, almost.
You can't say.
I know.
Well, actually, none of it was handed.
Okay, you had to find it.
Like, for example, number 3 on page 165, 66, the lines.
Yeah.
Where it further defines, you have the general already written into the code, and then it says facade shall have a visual break every 75 feet at a minimum. So what happens if it looks awful at 75 feet at a
You
minimum?
have to synthesize all of it together.
Yeah,
You can actually have breaks that are less than 75, but that's the maximum, is the 75.
Okay.
If you have them 25 or 50, and it's based on increments that are.
So why do we have to be so detailed? So detailed.
Imagine somebody wants to put a very large steel warehouse building that's gonna be 300 feet long, and it's gonna employ tons and tons of people, and we're gonna go to that corporation and say, no, not here in Lakewood. We have to, every 75 feet, you have to move the building back
Right.
8 inches and 12 inches. Okay, and then every 75 feet, and you have to do that. It's just one more little roadblock. And it doesn't, this is throughout the entire city, so this is an industrial section. Okay, this is not just on streetscaping. However, there is something in the paragraphs before that does, and we're getting into this now, houses because of the flood zone are, and you put a streetscape next to a house, and we've been discussing that.
right.
Well, that's gonna be taken away from us here, You cannot, this is appreciation, location, respectful transition, activation, streetscape, building forms following proposed functions and overall sustainability. There's something else, appreciation of location, where overall compatibility. I'm sorry. What is it? 160. Overall character of the city, appreciation of location, respect, transition, activation of the streetscape, building forms following proposed functions. This is very, very subjective. It is not, this is not something, if somebody comes in and meets our fairly stringent LDRs and guidelines, and they, why should they have to jump through more hoops, go hire more people and why should the city have to hire another person to, that we can't even find people as it is?
Because that's what our commission wants.
Well, just for as far as the side question with breaking it every 75 feet, articulation of 8 to 12 inches, those type of things are in a lot of codes.
Right,
Like Palms County, for instance, because they build stuff at a larger scale there, it's 200 feet, that's, I think, a 2-foot articulation. And there's many other cities that do that type of thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with prescribing something like that to break up the facades. And they give a reason here because of the fact that most of Lake Worth has very small lots, narrow lots, whatever like that. They're trying to emulate that. I get the spirit of what they're trying to do there, and I understand what you're saying is making it a little bit more onerous for people to come to the system, but most developers from their season and going through different jurisdictions are used to doing that. It's not like they're gonna come here and say, whoa, I've never done that.
well, I didn't mean to pull that one thing out.
No, I know, but
I'm saying that's more of a guideline,
but there
to
are
me,
things
that's a
here
guideline.
that they're used to doing.
right?
So, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with taking things up a little bit more. I agree that there's a little bit too much of a hodgepodge of things to come in and have a better standard of
And you think that this would accomplish that?
I think it needs some work, but I do agree with a lot of the terms we put in here. Again, my biggest problem is 16.
I think a lot of this is already in our ordinances.
What I was looking at was 155. The overall building administration, orientation, rhythm, height, setback, mass, and bulk of an existing streetscape shall be respected. Okay, who's make that decision?
Yes, how is this, this needs some sharpening.
A lot of it already on.
Yeah, a lot of it's over
Yeah.
there.
Yes. And that's where. it
Written in those
belongs.
exact words.
Not in that, that married them together.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that's where it belongs in the guidelines. I can't tell you how many people I've told that, can we do this, can we do that? Well, look, go to guidelines, guidelines are very comprehensive, and I think they're pretty easy, pretty easy to follow. And you go to the guidelines, okay, if they want to incorporate these in a set of guidelines for the city of Lake Worth, go at it, this is what we're trying to achieve. And if you do not meet those guidelines, well, the staff is gonna look at that and say, well, maybe we need to take this above the board. Could be planning and zoning, could be whatever. And, let's take this, because you're not meeting this guideline. These are guidelines. And then they can come back to that board and say, well, this is the reason that we want to, we don't want this necessarily, not gonna follow this particular guideline to the nth degree. But instead, we're gonna be dealing with 2 consultants that have to be paid, one of us, one by us and one by the contractor, or the developer. And it just seems that this is more of a guideline type thing that they should put this into an ordinance.
But the consultant thing only is falls under stuff with 16, right? Like the other things you're talking about as far as
Well,
15, all that stuff, that's not.
Well, who's gonna determine if the overall building fenestration, orientation, rhythm, setback, height, mass, and bulk of an existing streetscape shall be respected? Who's gonna be the determiner of that?
Well, in this case, if it will come to you like, let's say there's a kind of zoning board, where you have a streetscape now that shows how.
Right.
That would probably have to be created and would be, to make a kind of zoning board, or you, because you also have, you don't have as many major site plans, but you use, the, Gulfstream, and you may be getting some other ones, especially if, anything that happens with L&M or K. There will be a potentially larger building than is typically seen in the city coming before you at some point.
If this were made into an ordinance or incorporated into the ordinance, if this change were made, what effect would that have on a project such as L&M?
Well,
I mean,
besides the fact that the building that came out of the RFP, could not have been built under any of the LDRs or the major thoroughfare guidelines or the historic preservation design guidelines, which was, because it never became a real project, that discussion never took place. It would ensure more strongly that if we got a larger building, it would have to read with multiple buildings in some way. That I think people in Lake Worth Beach don't really like big buildings, but if the experience going down the street, Reed is a much smaller building, and we have some examples from the charrette where, oh, that's a pretty big building, look at the gross square footage. So the way it's designed and broken up, it appears to be a building that's a little more friendly and can be embraced in context of the scale that Lake Worth Beach is.
And that what you just articulated is part of this.
So that will be taken into consideration anywhere in the city, not just in the historic district.
Well, but not because of these additions to this ordinance. Well, I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. In other words, the ordinance that we're being asked to forward our recommendation to the commission states an awful lot of things. Okay, let's say we finally find a developer that wants to develop L&M. And okay, now if this is brought to fruition, on top of all the other design guidelines and meeting our board's requirements and staff's requirements and making sure that everybody is going to be happy, because everybody's always happy with everything, every project that is put forth. Now they're going to have to go through to make sure that the building adopts all these things. In number 16, the guy will have to go and hire somebody to be able to explain to, not us, not the board, not the city commission, not the staff, but one of the staff members that you have to hire. Okay. And they will have to get together to make sure that that particular project meets all the criteria.
Under 16, yes.
Under 16. And I'm thinking that's a hell of a thing to, again, throw out, because we have a hard time getting anything approved anyway. So.
I actually have a full presentation tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning.
You have a motion and a second.
I
right?
seem to hear from you that 16 needs to be recommended as not moving forward, but to recover what you may or may not want out of the rest of it, if it's nothing, it's nothing.
I think that we should recommend that it goes back for rewriting.
So
Because
you have,
we do agree that the
Yeah.
spirit of the intention of 75–80% for the majority of it is we're in favor of it. It's just that it's not written for ordinance purposes. There's just too much.
Okay.
Need to be typed.
I'd like, we have a motion and a second. We discussed the heck out of this. Go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, which is to recommend, to not recommend the commission adopt. these-
Recommend denial.
Recommend denial. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Janelle.
Thank you, Robert.
If you can summarize that, for them, we appreciate it.
What's the next one?
That's,
Next
2212. Is that it?
Yeah.
The affordable housing program.
Right.
There's been a great push, as you all know, for several years to address the housing shortage in Long Beach County. I'm going to jump into the presentation piece. We have in our comp plan, 15% bonus that's allowed in intensity for affordable housing. And we also have in our code now under sustainability, the ability to get the sustainable bonus met by affordable housing and workforce housing, that really kind of totally broad definition. Out of the 4 housing developments that have come into the that have been discussed in the change of the commission, it has repeatedly been, we have to require affordable workforce housing in any projects asking for additional density. The county has an exchange program that's rather difficult to maneuver, and there's only so many units in it. If you can't, if you don't get the table fast enough, you can't use the exchange program. The Bohemian, I think, has 60 some units of exchange. There's a project coming forward, East Coast Station, that has like 38. So anyway, taking all that into account, this evolution in the affordable housing program began a while ago. This was created to work in Lake Forest Beach, but can also facilitate any other affordable housing program like low-income housing credits. There's some CHIP money that could be provide for affordable housing. It works with homeownership or rent. It also could collaborate with the exchange program, but whichever program has the most stringent requirements, which this one happens to have the least stringent one, would apply. There's 2 tiers. One is that any type of increase to sustainable bonus, that a percentage of those additional units, because it's residential, have to be set aside as affordable. And that threshold is 15% that's provided from the comp plan. The comp plan also allows any project to have a 15% increase. But that additional increase of units, let's say you go from, you've got 10 units, you get 15, you add 1, you can't round up. That 1 would have to be dedicated as affordable. Can you jump? Go ahead and jump. Our program is unique in the sense that it is based on the household number of people and the rental for that actual particular unit. Now, I'll give you this example. Let's say you have a 4, and it's all based on the county's 4-person household gross income, which is now approaching, thought by her, getting close to $8,000 a year. So our program doesn't have to modify, floats with the median household income as defined by the county for a household of 4. So the beginning part was that a studio unit was designed in this program that a person making a living wage, which is around $15 an hour or a tiny bit more, could afford to live there on their own. And the studio can only have 1 or 2 people in it per minimum housing code. So regardless of the number of people in it, as long as the income of both of them is below that threshold, that would be considered affordable. And it works the same with each other unit. Another example that to help explain to people is that you've got a family of 4. One of the kids goes off to school and doesn't live in the household anymore. Now they're a household of 3, but their income hasn't changed. Do they have to move? Well, how this program works, the household derives the number of people in it, the house type, and the rent associated with it. So that if you have changes in familial status or household, you wouldn't necessarily have to move unless the gross income of that household changed. It's also much easier to administer and monitor. So there are rental units and rental prices based on the different types of units from studio up into, I think it's 4 bedrooms or more. It allows for fee simple ownership. You can go to the next slide again. There are gross, if a developer decides, I don't want to do your program, but I'm going to pay into your affordable housing trust fund, there are payments made to the city that are related to the type of unit. The unit type in a project must match in percentages the overall mixture of units in a project. So if a project has 1 and 2 bedroom units and they're 50-50, the number of affordable housing units must be 1 and 2 bedrooms, 50-50.
Give us a feel of how those percentages and amounts stack up against, comparable cities.
Well, no other city has a program that's derived like this. They go with standards from the federal government, from SHIP or the Housing Exchange Program. And they run, our program does not, and for the city could do it really, go to the low, and poor income household. Keep in mind that the median household income in Lake Forest Beach is at $39,000-$40,000. To build a unit to accommodate that family has to have a subsidy. You can't do it without it. And so our programs is a requirement of all developers who want additional density, had to be something that actually could be feasible. And this has gone to the, housing renaissance people, cover the last name. The CRA reviewed it. It's not crazily onerous. It also provides a mechanism that the question is supposed to. How do we keep the housing units affordable in perpetuity? Well, this one is here, you've got a 20-year increment, it's frozen. If the city would like to keep them affordable, they have first right of refusal to make another payment to the owner based on the median house income to keep those affordable for another 20 years. If the city doesn't have the money in affordable housing trust fund to do that, the developer then could have them go to market rate. But I had to be, I was requested to put it in some kind of mechanism that we would have an ability to keep them at least in the affordable workforce housing range for as long as possible. The system was based on the depreciation rate when projects normally need an influx of funds to be renovated or upgraded to about the 20-year mark. So that's how this is set up. There's another slide on that.
Okay, let me just.
Yeah.
This is smaller, single family homes.
It covers everything.
Okay, so, I'm going to build a 2-bedroom dwelling. And, over on Northeast Street. But I want to make it market rate. So I'm going to have to pay $80,000.
No, if you follow, unless you're asking for a density bonus. This doesn't apply.
Okay, all right,
It only applies if you're asking for extra needs.
okay. All right.
Well, those are, let's say somebody.
No, that
wanted
could
to
be
do
spread
a,
out.
a platted villa project.
Okay.
And you are an SFR, which has 7 units number, and you wanted to have a bump of 15%, which gets you like 8.5. That additional 15% units, those would be the ones that have to be remain affordable, not the base number. And so we worked it both ways, so that if you like we have one project already interested, it's a triplex with the 15% bonus, they could actually get one additional unit. Well, that one additional unit will have to be affordable. And so it goes from a triplex to quadplex.
And if they want that 4-plex in lieu of making it affordable, they would have to pay.
No, this one, we're not this is falling under comp plan additional unit.
No, what I'm saying, they're allowed to build a triplex.
Right.
Yeah, but if they can be given one extra unit if they say that unit is going to remain affordable.
Right.
Okay,
One or two.
or they can, there's no or.
2 tiers and a 5.
Okay.
So when the affordable housing is required, not by the choice of the developer. If you're asking for the sustainable bonus, like for East Dixie Highway, and you have a half-acre parcel, you can increase the density by 25%. When you request that density max, 15% of the units are going to be affordable. If you don't want to make them affordable, you're paying the fund.
Okay, and you're paying into the fund in that particular case, 5 times.
Based on whatever.
5 times.
Yeah.
It's based on the unit
$8,000.
connection of the project. And that will go into a trust fund that can be benefit. Let's say the city, a developer would agree to, I'll agree to have more than the 15% units be affordable if you pay me some additional money. And so the city could negotiate like the exchange program and maybe make a project that is high as 30% affordable, but part of that is being paid for by the city.
Well, by the trust fund.
Yes.
So it's money that's collected from developers, it's not like from the citizens, money collected from developers to increase affordable housing.
Only if they don't build the affordable units.
Do we have a
If they
trust
build the
fund?
affordable units, they don't have to.
They don't have to pay.
Do we have a affordable housing trust fund right now?
It will be set up as part of this ordinance.
Okay.
We have a trust fund for our grants for development funds, and we have one for the single bonus fund.
Okay, so let me get this straight. If it's not a bad thing to incentivize people to put in something in the city that we really want.
Right.
Right. That's a concept that maybe they could apply to the Gulf Stream.
Yeah.
Maybe if they look hard enough. What, can I ask, why is the section 3, line 227, why is that shaded in yellow?
It was a change that was made from the last time we worked together.
Where are you now?
I'm on line 227. In in my,
Oh, because there's also, there's an either or. There was a request that would be a penalty. I'm sorry, I missed that. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. Dana. If there's two avenues for the penalty. One is that if a unit falls out of being affordable as required, you would pay a penalty of $15 a square foot for the square footage of that unit. For that year that it's not affordable. The other penalty is much more draconian, is that if it falls out of affordability, you're paying a penalty based on that square footage for every year left in the covenant. So if it falls out of affordability in year 11, you're paying 9 years of penalty.
and that's gonna be extremely,
That commission's gonna have to decide whether they want a penalty, and if they do, which one they would like. Because I've had people advocating for no penalty, and I said, well, what happens if we do this and they don't pay affordable? That defeats the purpose.
and again, I have to ask, is there anybody else anywhere, up and down the coast in Florida, in South Florida, that has anything close to this, where there's a penalty, if something comes out of unaffordable?
It's like the NSBT houses, if you sold them for a profit, you're paying a penalty, you're paying money back to the CRA. There's a covenant within there, you can only be sold for so much, and the differential, and it doesn't say remain affordable for that period of time, and there's a penalty paid.
So if I understand it correctly, the first option, if they fell out of affordability for that year, they would get a penalty. But if they go back into affordability, like they redo it or whatever, then they would be okay again.
Yes.
Whereas the second one, regardless of what they do, they're gonna pay the remainder. So there's
That
no,
unit is likely never to be affordable.
never be affordable again.
Because of the penalty.
All right, well, why would they do it?
That's not.
So this is another question. So the trust fund, is that basically, is that protected? That can't be rolled into like general fund?
It can't be
or then-
put
Yeah,
It has to be affordable housing.
okay.
Anybody else have questions? Like I said, I really didn't have too much of an issue with this at all. Yeah. I can hear a motion now.
I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments included in ordinance 2022-12.
I have a motion now, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
And now my presentation tomorrow is actually for the business development board's entire state that we're doing. We describe this program because we are pretty much, it's already presented to the board last month. And we kind of things that we like it.
Yeah, no, I can see why.
So micro units. Micro units came up in 2015. It was discussed at a workshop and it was killed for a number of reasons. But now they're back. And there's been some further, the public slide 5 and
Okay.
to further refine what they will be. They are required to be a mixed-use project. They can be units of 250 to 750 square feet, studios, 2 bedrooms. They have to have a full kitchen. They have to have a full bathroom to be qualified as a dwelling unit. There are micro unit programs being put in place where it's basically an SRO, a single home occupancy, or a shared facility like a boarding house. These are dwelling units, they're just small. And because they're smaller, they will count as 0.75 residential units density versus 1. There's an interior common area requirement that is equivalent to 10% of the overall gross area of the units. That could be shared common space, could be virtual office space, library, arcade, commissary, kitchen, lounge, gym, something to help make up for the differential when the units are smaller. You also have to have an outdoor component that's equivalent to 5% of the gross area.
It's also a minimum of 20.
Yes. The minimum number of units, and they also have, these can only happen right now in this ordinance in the mixed use districts, which are along the major thoroughfares. It can't happen in the MF20 or MF30 multifamily district, because there's a requirement to have these buildings be mixed use and have some of the personal services associated to serve those residents. In exchange also for reducing parking requirements. The whole idea is that you have everything you need right there, even though you're in a small unit and you can walk. or utilize it so we can hopefully reduce, tripping rate, which then reflects back to the smaller, the lower density number of 0.75 versus 1.
And that's where we came up with the bare minimum square footage, 250 square foot is 25 by 10. And it's an extreme area. I mean, smaller than a motel room.
We have a requirement in the city that the hotel rooms be at least 175 square feet downtown. The 250 is about the size of a standard hotel.
Yeah.
It would be basically you have a modular kitchen, your bathroom, and a living area, studio.
I pulled up that 250 square foot of living, like just to see how the tiny houses are laid out, how the hotel rooms. It does work for one person.
Go to IKEA.
See how it's laid out.
Go to the IKEA store.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised when you can.
Yeah.
You buy the whole kitchen in a box.
Yeah.
Yes, amazing. And so you can do, and you still have to meet all the development requirements of setback height, floor area ratio, lot coverage, and that sort of thing.
The zoning was also going to be important, mixed use areas only.
Yeah.
So
And keep in mind that all of our mixed use districts, front and major thoroughfare work, except for federal highway, there is some mass transit already.
Yeah.
And maybe some improvement on mass transit over time. Then the next slide will be, and that's just.
No, okay. In prior commission administrations, we talked about bringing in density of young urban professionals. I don't know that this achieves that. I mean, I believe we're talking about this is, well, we're really trying to address almost minimum wage.
It's a service industry.
Right, they're addressing.
Restaurant, servers.
And, okay, so
bartender.
what is the chance that one of these 20 unit, 20, 30 unit, small, almost individual bedrooms becomes blighted slum area? I mean,
Well, we
because of-
got the standard 2-bedroom is going upwards of $3,000 now.
well, but I'm saying, and that just means people are getting poorer in order just to survive. But what I'm saying is that, are we making ourselves a new trailer park?
Are you, yeah, I was going to say, we're creating a.
Are we creating a trailer park?
I think that though too, there's some of the younger generation, they just want somewhere that's big enough to stay in their whole license outside of it.
Yeah.
They don't move their home.
Yeah, They need to leave an outlet to plug their phone in.
Some of them don't even buy from
No,
No, I've seen that too.
I've seen,
I didn't when I was 18. I used crates.
Right.
it. And
Mhm.
with all the remote work and stuff.
And if you look at the housing costs compared to, some of the, they're still white collar positions, there will be a lot of young professionals coming out of college who want to live in something like this. It will not only be service industry, it will cater to the service industry for sure. These work retail and, restaurant, but they are young professionals who are struggling to find a place to live. That's another discussion at the economic summit last week, was talked about the county and business development board, is that businesses cannot move here because our lower level staff, secretaries, assistants, runners, interns, junior staff people cannot find a place to live.
Are there any restrictions on the amount of time that somebody would be allowed to rent? There has to be a monthly,
Well, this would fall under our spending category, that we have over 60 days or more.
60 days or more.
Yeah.
Which is unenforceable apparently, as it is, right?
Right.
So,
Well, it's unenforceable if you don't enforce it.
true, well,
Well, the only concern is that it become like, boarding house.
Well, that all depends on management, how it's gonna be constructed. Is it rental? Is it condo? How are you gonna do the micro
Or
units?
Airbnb. I mean, so it has 20 units of Airbnb, and guess what? You look on Airbnb,
Oh, should change.
everything is, everything is,
There was a request, and I haven't figured out quite how to, incorporate it. Because we haven't made a decision on whether we're going to go with Airbnb. But there was the first one that was finished, it was really an awesome one, is, the current in West Palm Beach. It was completed and already sold for $84 million at the hotel. Extended stay hotel, and it's right down the street from campus, and it's behind the community foundation building. So now there are two other developers looking at micro units in West Palm. There's the first one, such a great building that someone decided to turn into a hotel for their license.
Okay, then the other thing, could there be a requirement put into this? That each unit have its own, electric meter. Hotel obviously, well, yeah, because somebody has to,
Well, do they have to be rentals or can they be sold individually?
They can be,
Either or, right?
we don't
but it would still be that.
discriminate between them.
That would encourage, number one, that's gonna help our utility because every meter that's hung on there gets a service fee every month. And then each person, that would also encourage that person to open a utility account.
Encourage leasing, not actually to
Leasing,
people that will occupy.
Right, as opposed
Keep in
to,
mind that,
several rooms.
and this is what I can cover as doing this. You can't resell utility. And so if it is not individually metered and there's a common area meter or a global meter, your rent needs to be a fixed number that is inclusive of whatever your utility rate might be. And we have in the past had people that resell utilities and they don't have a fixed rent and that's against the law. So I don't think it would be impossible to try and do it. But it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, that alleviates it to a bit.
The only question I have with, is spatially an issue. To meter all the utilities, releases that are already so small, I don't know.
Mhm.
Well, actually, a larger utility line, you can probably only have like, one or 2 meters.
It'd be a meter room,
Meter.
and then they're like a condo. But, yeah, I'd like to make that or somebody would like
That's a
to.
good idea.
Yeah.
All right, what does everybody think?
To approve that.
Single build, there, I'm sorry, just one more thing, at line 81, there's a shaded area also. Interior shared common areas supporting micro units must equate 10% of the gross living area of all residential units. Okay, so,
There's a clarification that we just want to make. So, we did that it's the gross area of all the units combined. It has to think about what the common area.
common area, so recreation, park,
And a lot of projects have it, but especially it's critical in micro unit project because you are limited in space. You're not going to want to be in there all the time. And I don't want to say it leads to communal living, but you get to know your neighbors.
well, then they would incorporate maybe a community room with TVs and stuff like that, and
Lounge.
a lounge.
Sure.
Okay.
A volunteer bar.
Swimming pool.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. I mean,
Okay, motion. So we're gonna put a condition for the utility, for the meter.
For request.
I move to recommend.
Recommendation.
I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LD architect's amendments, including an ordinance 2022-13.
with the recommendation.
With the recommendation that, we look into the metering, independent metering.
We have a motion and a second on board. Any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Waters. Thank you. Okay, moving on to, we have a, public comment, public participation.
Thank you.
Mr. Blackman.
Yes, I'll be brief. My name is Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. I'm an urban planner with TWB Associates, my own business. I have a client and I have a partner that came before the board last year, and she received a result letter. The date was June 23rd. The last section of section 22.2-26 variances says variance denial. D. Any variance denied under this section may not be brought back for consideration for at least 12 months following the date of the result letter of the appropriate review body's decision. So when I read that, I assume now, after the 23rd of June, I would assume of this year, that she could resubmit that same variance application. And I'm asking that because I have a captive audience of staff and to do that one.
Is that part of the ordinance readily available?
Well, that's. I guess any decision that we have, if you get a denial, you have to wait a period of time before you can bring back a substantially similar request to the board or staff,
Or exactly the same?
or exactly.
Okay.
In this case, you have been cited by code enforcement. So it would be to cure a code enforcement action. Is that, I've read through the code, I don't see anything that would prevent us from applying with code enforcement.
So, yeah, in other words, they're coming here to get into compliance, because otherwise you couldn't come in front of us unless you were in compliance,
Right.
so.
Now, I'm going just hypothetically, because I don't know which one you're talking about. but-
I don't want to get into the merits of it.
Okay.
Please don't.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're all board members.
I know what.
Okay. Okay, so the question is, that is your concern, whether it can be brought back?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We could answer that.
Come on, back.
Well, I was here anyway, and it was the question of the day.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank you for your time and all the good.
Thanks, Bob. Okay.
Chair, Vice Chair.
Okay, we apparently have lost our chair. And, I'm happy to fill in for a meeting, just, you know. But I particularly do not wish to be chair.
Why not? Why not?
Well, because of the historic, you know, resource preservation board. While though we do have requirements for professional. I was thinking of somebody better suited to do that. Plus, I mean, that's, you know, there's people that are gonna be on here. There's gonna be some new members. There's gonna be some appointments. How many people, does anybody know when our appointments are up?
Oh, yeah, it's right online. What, July next year, we're all.
Mine is up.
I think yours is up.
Yours is up. And you may or may not even be reappointed.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nobody knows. You gotta go for an interview.
Yeah.
Mine's in 23, I think.
Yeah.
So today you wanted you to do your annual reorganization where you would pick your chair and vice chair. You all obviously are low on members right now.
Yeah.
And Mr. Martin is going for his interview coming up, so if you all want to defer that to next meeting, that's what planning and zoning did to get the, hopefully have the other members on board.
I wanted to, well, it's gonna get a new member. I'd say in truth and continuity, I'd like to have somebody who's been here a little bit. I was gonna ask if either, you know, well, actually, Mr. Pickens, if you were interested in taking the board members, board chair.
I would be chair, I could be vice chair, but do chair.
Well, I wouldn't be vice chair.
Because if you're chair, you gotta come in and sign paperwork.
And you have architectural background.
I don't
And
want-
you understand, and I believe you understand Robert's rules of order.
Come on, we'll help you.
Yeah, well, we'll be nice.
It'd be nice. You get to see Mr. Waters and share.
I heard sure.
There you go.
If you ever wish to relinquish the position, I'm sure the board would entertain that.
Go ahead now.
I think you nominated.
I want to name Steve. Take it as the chairman of the.
Do I hear a second?
organization.
Any other comment, any comments, Steve? All in favor?
I'd like to make a motion to have Mr. Guthrie remain as vice chair in case we need him, like next meeting or whatever. All right.
We have a motion and a second on board. I protest.
You know how to do it.
Thank you very much. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Nay. Just kidding. So, anything else, staff comments? Mr. New Chair, would you like to accept the acceptance speech or anything?
I'll do it next time.
Mr. Martin?
Nope, The only commentary is that maybe we should standardize the application for a hardship. For everybody's sake, and there's an application with the.
If we have it,
We
right?
do have a standard set of items that can be considered. We can't force anybody to provide
No,
the level of information that you may feel you need to make a decision, and that's.
But in the application, do they disclose assets and liabilities, or do you get a attached tax return and attached accounts?
That's on the list of things. for
yeah.
them to
I
see.
mean,
Oh, okay.
We had one
I
meeting
didn't-
last year, she gave us everything.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there going, oh, God, what? Yes,
Yeah, well,
Can you vote?
it should be held,
how are you? Give her the room.
It's dripping on her right now. She's sort of.
At the request of the person providing information, can be redacted, so it's not. become
Right.
part of the public record.
right,
Nice.
And that makes it
Okay.
part of it, it's sort of maybe wasn't entirely clear, because you know, if the W2 happens, social security number on it.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So
I mean,
I think that should-
I'm just as uncomfortable asking for it as they are, I'm sure, setting it out there, but
I know you all couldn't hear Erin,
No,
but she said that the applicant was uncomfortable fighting it because it may make her, it may make you feel like she wasn't as needy as she feels she is.
well, and I look at it this way, one of the board members made it, do you have a mortgage? No. Well, go to your bank. If you have your house in that neighborhood, we're looking, you know,
But look,
500-600 down, you know.
it's okay to say that, but when you're retired
No,
and your life expectancy is going a lot longer, you
Right,
don't want to touch because you could be using it at age 90.
right.
Well, that's what I was kind of looking at on the other side of it. Yeah.
Has every avenue been touched in that aspect?
So this will come back to you at the next.
Yeah.
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
Just to remind you all that the second reading for the Gulfstream Hotel will be the 21st. It will be at the casino building, not at City Hall. And it is only for the second reading of the ordinance for the mixed use development. Nothing else is being discussed at that meeting. The future discussion with incentives or whatever else is yet to be scheduled.
And that needs to be pushed
But
online.
once it goes to the second reading, they can go ahead and start.
Yeah, they reject it at a second reading.
Because it's a quasi-judicial hearing, unless there is some evidence produced and the quasi-judicial hearing is reopened.
No.
That justifies to be reconsidered. The second reading is for concrete. However, we haven't always solved that.
Right,
But that's the law, how our rules work.
so if they found like, Indian remains.
We don't have an archaeological law.
Okay.
You shouldn't even mention it.
We're not being taken over.
Maybe
right?
call it-
If we have, right?
Yeah.
Something operational, so